Okay, good evening everyone, and welcome to our regular council meeting for September 20th, 2021. I now wish to call tonight's meeting to order, and I do wish to advise that members of council are in the room today, except for Councillor McMath and Councillor Ebony Logans. So otherwise, all other 5 members of council are present, along with some members of staff. I wish to begin by acknowledging that we are broadcasting virtually and meeting upon the territory of the Sauk Nation. Item 5 is Ministerial Order M192. That is that council is holding this meeting without members of the public in attendance under Ministerial Order M192, as council chambers cannot safely accommodate the unknown number of public participants wishing to attend, and that council is committed to ensuring openness, transparency, accessibility, and accountability through the submission of written comments and the provision of live and recorded broadcasts of the meeting. So we do need to pass this as a motion. I'll look for a mover, please. That's Councillor St. Pierre is moved and seconded by Councillor Beddoes. For members of the public that are viewing tonight, we are still in a stage 3 of the BC Restart Plan. We do have plans as this ministerial order will be expiring, and we have a report coming to us later on tonight. So we do look forward to welcoming you back into chambers as this ministerial order expires. We will initially be bound by the the public health orders that are in place, and then eventually spatial capacity of the building itself. However, you will find details of that in the report that's attached here. So on that, I'll call the question on this motion, please. All those in favor? Is anyone opposed? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Council, I'll ask you to look at item 6, which is tonight's agenda. First off, we do have additional information that's come in for items number 7.1, 9.1, and 11.1. So we do have some written correspondence on all of these items. Secondly, it's been brought to my attention that we have roughly 10 members of the public that would like to speak during the public question and comment period. Procedurally, we only allow 10 minutes under our procedural bylaw and 2 minutes, up to 2 minutes per speaker. So as we approve tonight's agenda, I would like council to also consider amending that so that we allow for 20 minutes for the public question and comment period, so that all registered speakers will have the opportunity to address council. Okay, so our motion then would be that the agenda for the September 20th regular meeting of council be amended and include the supplemental information for items 7.1, 9.1, and 11.1, and to extend the public question and comment period from 10 minutes to 20 minutes. So that's moved by Councillor St. Pierre and seconded by Councillor Bateman. Does that meet with what staff? I've noticed that you've kindly put this motion on the screen. I've added another one, so just confirming that I have met everything that you had looked for.
I can't amend it, unfortunately, the way that's set up. So
no, that's fine.
To get that figured out.
But I'm just like, what we're proposing and what I read out captures what you're looking for us to advance in the agenda. Correct? Excellent. Okay, all those in favor then? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Our first item is the public and statutory hearings, of which we have a couple here. So right off the bat, I am going to open tonight's public hearing. And I do have a statement as chair that I need to read that I've conveniently placed somewhere. Aha. One of these laminated sheets. Excellent. Okay. So this public hearing is being held pursuant to the Local Government Act. At this public hearing, any person who believes that their interest in property is affected by the proposed bylaw will be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard or to present written submissions respecting matters contained in the bylaw that are the subject of this hearing. Copies of written submissions received to date are available. It is important that all who speak at this hearing restrict their remarks to matters contained in the bylaw, and it is my responsibility of chair of this hearing to ensure that all remarks are so restricted. For those of you who wish to speak, please at the appropriate time commence your address to council by clearly stating your name and municipality of residence. then you may give us the benefit of your views concerning the proposed bylaw. Submissions must be received before or during the public hearing in order to be considered by council. Members of council may, if they so wish, ask questions of you following your presentation or submission. However, the main function of council members this evening is to listen to the views of the public. It is not the function of council at this public hearing to debate the merits of the proposed bylaw with individual citizens. Everyone who deems his or her interest in property to be affected shall be given the opportunity to be heard at this hearing. No one will be or should feel discouraged or prevented from making his or her views known. Please note that this hearing forms part of tonight's regular meeting of council and as such is being video recorded. Videos and their contents, including any personal information disclosed during the hearing, will be posted on the district's website. So for members of the public that are viewing, we have two public hearings tonight. 7.1, which would be for 5627 Woodlands Road, and 1934 Powliuk Crescent, and the statement pertains to both of those items. So the public hearing is now open, and we'll turn our attention to 7.1, which is 5627 Woodlands Road, and I'll ask staff to give their presentation, please.
Just before staff starts the presentation, Mr. Lowe, if I can just ask you to turn your camera off and keep your microphone muted, and I will let you know when it's your opportunity to address council. Thank you.
Thank you. The district's received a zoning bylaw amendment application for rezoning of a property located at 5627 Woodlands Road from rural residential RU4 to neighborhood rural residential RU5 for the purposes of creating 4 new lots. Under the RU5 zone, the lot can be further subdivided in the future if that should occur. Council approved first and second reading of the zoning amendment at its regular meeting on July 12th of this year and directed staff to proceed with the scheduling of tonight's public hearing. So, screen's just frozen here. Or the computer's frozen. There we go. Thank you. Subject property is approximately 1.45 hectares and is located in the North Casinos neighborhood of Souk, near one of the main entrances to the C2C Regional Park on Harborview Road. The surrounding neighborhood is a mix of rural, residential, and agricultural properties. Generally, the surrounding neighborhood is treed with clearings for house sites and small agricultural operations. Subject property is designated gateway residential in the official community plan. This is the area to which low-density residential growth will occur. Although the area is categorized as growth area and is located within the community growth area, the type of development that is targeted for this area is primarily low-density infill development. The proposed zoning amendment meets the objectives of the gateway residential land use designation. Section 4.7.3G of the official community plan considers allowing developers the flexibility to provide their required affordable housing in different forms in order to create an affordable housing mix in new developments. These could be secondary suites, condominium rental units, cash in lieu, or land provided to the district. A cash contribution for affordable housing is to be secured by a Section 219 covenant. The applicant has acknowledged the importance of this and has volunteered to contribute $9,000 for the proposed additional 4 lots to be created. As per Section 510 of the Local Government Act, a 5% land dedication or cash in lieu is required for subdivisions creating 3 or more lots payable to the district. Because the Parks and Trail Master Plan does not make specific recommendations for park acquisition in this area, staff recommend that Council proceed with accepting cash in lieu of Parkland Dedication. This proposal will require a development permit under Development Permit Area Number 2, as it has the potential to create a final total of 5 lots. Development permit would be considered prior to any subdivision occurring. Under the RU5 zone, the permitted and principal uses include a single-family dwelling or manufactured home, or one duplex unit per lot. In keeping with the existing form and character of the immediate neighborhood, consisting of single-family homes, the applicant has agreed to have a no duplex unit restriction included in their zoning requirements of the covenant to be registered on title if third reading is to be given. This includes the future potential to subdivide the remainder lot 4 into 2 more lots as well. As part of the application, the applicant provided a development justification rationale for the rezoning amendment request, stating that the proposed subdivision development is keeping with the character of the neighborhood. Proposed lot sizes of 2,500 square meters provide a housing option with a large yard and is located near an elementary school. Keeping with the vision for the area, the subdivision as currently proposed will take advantage of the natural views and scenery while creating a welcoming rural aesthetic along Woodlands Road and Harborview Road in the North Casinos neighborhood. The rezoning amendment will allow for low-density infill development and the creation of 3 new lots. The zoning amendment application meets the requirements of the district's bylaws and policies. Staff recommends proceeding with third reading as per the attached bylaw, and the necessary road dedications are also a component included in the Section 219 covenant for the 4-meter wide road dedication. That concludes my presentation tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Powliuk. Just a technical question. For those members of the public that have joined with us on Teams, are they able to see the presentation then through like a screen share? Okay, and then this is, okay, I just wanted to know what they were seeing as well. Okay, thank you. Okay, so what I'll do is just see if there's any questions on this item for staff, if there's any questions, and then we'll go to members of the public. Councillor Beddoes, go ahead.
Yeah, to staff, you said $9,000 for affordable housing. Is that $9,000 for all 5 lots?
So while the subdivision, or sorry, the rezoning, which proposes to create 4 lots, so the existing lot plus 3 other lots, that would be $3,000 per lot. So 3 new lots being created, that would be your $9,000. The 5th lot that was discussed, based on the current size of the parcel and the RU5 zoning, in future, this parcel could be subdivided to create a grand total of 5 lots. However, at this time, the applicant has indicated they only have a desire to create 4 lots.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Bateman.
Yeah, so under the current zoning, 2 homes are permitted. Is that correct?
Under the current zoning, you could subdivide, you're speaking towards further subdivision of the parcel, or the uses that are allowed within the zone itself, the single family and a duplex unit and secondary suites?
I was speaking, I believe it's, under the current zoning is 6,000 meters squared. Is that correct for per lot? And the size of the property would allow 2 homes to be built on it.
Under the RU4 zone, the minimum parcel size is 1 hectare, as it's located outside the sewer specified area. And this parcel is 1.45.
4.5. So only the 1 would be permitted at this point. Okay. Now, I note there's a no duplex units provision, which is a good thing. This future subdivision, the owner will be able to do that working directly with the planning department or the...
With the building department for the restriction of duplexes?
Yeah.
Correct. So through the building permit review, a search of the titles will indicate what covenants are registered against the property, and review of those covenants would reveal that there would be a restriction on the development of duplexes.
Okay. A tree protection plan is required at time of subdivision. Is that right? I'm interested in the subject property photo we're seeing here. It's fully treed, and of course now it is not fully treed. And of course that's perfectly permissible Could you just remind me, in the draft OCP, or is it in the tree bylaw or management strategy, will properties need to stay fully treed prior to subdivision?
Subject to any future bylaws or policies being adopted by the district, certainly an enforcement component will be a consideration of those policies and bylaws. An associated fee or penalty would result in any tree removal on the property. At this time, the expectation is that through the subdivision process, that tree management plan be conducted. I am aware that the applicant is in attendance tonight if there's further questions, but staff were advised from the applicant that some tree removal occurred on the property due to life safety concerns.
Life safety, okay. Yeah, there's some lovely trees at the frontage on Woodlands that hopefully will be preserved. Thank you. That's it for questions.
Okay, seeing no other questions from members of council, I'll now ask our corporate officer to introduce and invite those members of the public registered to speak on this item, please.
Certainly, thank you, Your Worship. Mr. Collard, as the applicant, is there anything you wanted to clarify before we receive public input on your application? Okay, thank you very much. Our first registered speaker on this application is Dawn and Christine Brown. If you want to turn on your camera and your microphone, please go ahead and address council.
Hello, I can't seem to take off my camera, so can you hear me speaking?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, this is Christine Brown, and I'm sorry my husband is in another meeting and can't join us, but basically I'm just interested in the process of rezoning because we live on Woodlands Road as well, and we're applying for rezoning to RU5. So I have no objections to the proposed subdivision going in. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all I wanted to say.
Great. Thank you very much. If you can please mute your microphone. Our next registered speaker is Dan Quigley. If you want to turn on your camera and your microphone, please go ahead and address council.
Good evening, council. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. My name is Dan Quigley, and Carol McKinnon and I are building a home at 5651 Woodlands Road, adjacent to the property that's in question tonight. And we're hoping to have our occupancy in February of 2022. And Carol and I have met the applicant and had several conversations on their plan to rezone their property. So these are my thoughts to give to you tonight. We're talking about a bylaw to amend bylaw number 600, Sioux zoning bylaw 2013, for the purpose of amending the zoning on the property located at 5627 Woodlands Road from rural residential RU4 to neighborhood rural residential RU5. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Hello? Okay, thank you. So in looking at the information that was provided by staff, I agree, and I propose that council accepts cash in lieu from the applicant for the required 5% Parkland dedication per section 510 of the Local Government Act. Prior to the final adoption of zoning amendment bylaw number 809-600-85-2021, the owner must enter into section 219 of the covenants to address housing tenure restrictions, off-site works, and servicing requirements, cash in lieu in the amount of $9,000 for 10% affordable housing for residential developments and other necessary works and services. So that I propose that council, before adoption of said amendment to the bylaw, secures $9,000 from the applicant, but in the future, if he subdivides the other lot, that this amount must be reviewed. According to staff, from my looking at this, the information, the proposed 3 new lots will be 2,500 meters squared in size, and with the remainder lot that I just mentioned, 6,000 meters in size. Under the RU5 zone, the remainder lot can be further subdivided in future. The subject property is within the Gateway Residential Land Use Designation in the official community plan bylaw number 400, 2010 OCP, and is within the identified community growth area. The zoning of the property aligns with the OCP. As such, I see no conflict with the proposed RU5 zoning of these properties, as it aligns with the Gateway Residential Land Use and it conforms to the official community plan. And I propose that Council considers this as a positive in their deliberations. The proposed zoning amendment meets the objectives of the Gateway Residential Designation. The new lots proposed will provide low-density infill and preserve the rural character of the surrounding neighborhood. The applicant's request to rezone 4 lots clearly demonstrates an opportunity for preserving rural large lots that are adjacent to the 5 large rural lots located at 5651 Woodlands. In fact, that's where I live. These proposed lots will not have a significant impact on views of Souk Basin and the Olympic Mountains, enjoyed by existing members of the community, including myself. In fact, they will complement the spirit of the Gateway Residential theme that Souk Council has been promoting. Provision of Parkland Dedication as per Section 510 of the Local Government Act. A 5% land dedication or cash in lieu is required for subdivisions, and they create 3 or more lots payable to the District of Souk. Because the Park and Trail Master Plan does not make specific recommendations for park acquisition in the vicinity of this property, staff recommends that Council consider accepting cash in lieu of Parkland Dedication. The payment in lieu of the Parkland Dedication will be added to the appropriate reserve fund for future park acquisitions. Cash in lieu will be determined at the time of the subdivision. I propose that Council accept staff recommendations to accept cash in lieu from the applicant for the provision of Parkland Dedication as proclaimed in the Section 510 of the Local Government Act. I take notice of the applicant's desire to donate 4 meters of road dedication along Harborview Road, and within this dedication he proposes to install a 425-foot gravel walkway to ensure pedestrians have safe passage along a very narrow road. The applicant has also proposed to plant a number of trees along this walkway to beautify the neighborhood. I propose that Council accepts this proposal. In keeping with the existing form and character of the immediate neighborhood, consisting of single-family dwellings, the applicant has agreed to have a no duplex unit restriction covenant registered on the certificate of title for any new lot created throughout the subdivision. The no duplex unit restriction has been added to the required zoning amendment requirements, Section 219 covenant. I agree with the applicant's decision to have a no duplex unit restriction covenant, as it will limit the number of vehicles entering and parking on a very narrow Harborview Road. As well, it will most likely keep the noise and the white light levels down in the rural setting. So in conclusion, Mayor and Council, in a review of the applicant's request, my wife and I are 100% in favor of Council's acceptance for a bylaw to amend bylaw number 600, Souk zoning bylaw 2013, for the purpose of amending the zoning on the property located at 5627 Woodlands Road from rural residential RU4 to neighborhood rural residential RU5. Thank you for your time, Council.
Thank you, Mr. Quigley, and welcome to Casinos.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. If you can please mute your microphone again. And our next speaker is Susan Belford. If you'd like to turn on your camera and your microphone, please go ahead and address Council.
Oops. Yes, here I am. My major concern is that at this time, this is one of those developments which would be dealt with differently under the possible new Souk's future OCP, in which gateway residential land use designation doesn't exist. In the new OCP, this property would fall into the gateway residential north land use designation, which specifies a minimum lot size of 1 hectare, not 2,500 square meters. So the lots resulting from the subdivision would then be in contravention of that. It seems to me that as the change of OCP is just months away, it seems wrong to put this through now. And I think that it's clear that continuing development in the north side as this will do is going to continue with not urban sprawl, but rural sprawl, I would guess. I'm glad there's no duplex restriction, but there's still a lot, it's a substantial increase in density, and I think council should reconsider. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Belford.
Thank you. And our final speaker this evening is Bylaw. If you want to go ahead and turn on your camera and your microphone, you can go ahead and address council.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I submitted an email letter. I live at 5660 Woodlands Road, and I've lived there for 14 years. The current zoning when I purchased my property allowed a duplex, and each side was allowed to have a suite. And I was also allowed to have an accessory building to a renter. So that's effectively 5. My neighbors on either side of me actually do have a scenario like that. One of them has 2 mobile homes and a suite in his home. I am not against this project because what's proposed is in keeping with the neighborhood feel. It's far superior to what type of infill has happened in the past. There's much smaller parcels immediately around this person, and there's a duplex almost right across the street. So I think this fits well. But I would prefer that my letter would be accepted as my official statement as a neighbor and how I agree with this. Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you, Mr. Lowe. I just want to confirm that we have in fact received your written submission, and we had it here from Bylaw and Michelle Sigurdsson and family. And it was just about 2 pages or so, and we received that on September the 18th. So we do have that, and it does form part of the records, and it looks like all of council has already received and read it a few times. So thank you for that submission.
Best wishes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll just turn it back to the applicant. Mr. Collard, is there anything that you wanted to clarify that was raised through the public comment?
Hi, Carolyn. Thank you. I guess one thing I just wanted to clarify, Your Worship and Council, is about the OCP designation of the Gateway Residential. When we applied for this, we started the process in March 2020 for our pre-application meeting, and then went on to our formal application in October of 2020. Now, we based our application based on the current OCP because, well, we don't know what the new OCP would be and how that might change. So everything that we have proposed has been in line with the current OCP, and we have done our best and worked quite hard at it over this last year, as well as Matthew and Kasha, which have been very helpful in putting this proposal together. And I just wanted to point that out going forward, that was our goal, and that's what we work towards. Thank you. Awesome. And Worship.
Thank you, Mr. Collard. Okay, I'll just confirm with our corporate officer that that completes all of the public that have registered to speak, specifically on 5627 Woodlands Road.
Yes, Your Worship, it does.
Okay, so on that note, just with the order of operations and process here, because we're in a public hearing, then we move to the second public hearing, receive the staff report and input, then we would close and then make a deliberation after that.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. I'll just ask council if there is anything further you wish to ask of staff or the applicant while the applicant is online. Okay, seeing nothing, so we'll move on to the next one, which is 7.2, which is a zoning amendment bylaw number 818-600-88, 2021, 1934 Powliuk Crescent. Over to staff, please.
Thank you. Districts received a zoning bylaw amendment application for rezoning of a property located at 1934 Powliuk Crescent from medium lot residential R2 to small lot residential R3 for the purposes of creating 2 new lots. Council approved first and second reading of the zoning amendment bylaw at the regular meeting held on July 12th of this year and directed staff to proceed with scheduling tonight's public hearing. Subject property is 1,016 square meters. Parcels located within walking distance of the town center. There's an existing home and a few accessory buildings on the current property. The surrounding neighborhood is a mix of small, medium, large, and multifamily residential with commercial and institutional land uses. Subject property is designated community residential in the official community plan. And this is an area to which low to medium residential density growth will occur. Residential development is targeted towards the community growth areas where municipal services can be provided or accessed in an efficient manner. The OCP considers allowing developers flexibility to provide their required affordable housing in different forms. For this, the applicant has acknowledged the importance of affordable housing and has volunteered to contribute $3,000 for the proposed additional lot to be created. As part of their application, the applicant provided a development justification rationale for the rezoning amendment request, stating that the proposed rezoning from R2 to R3 will enable the family to provide a home for their daughter. This is an older area of Souk where infill development on an adjacent property is ongoing. The land is within the community growth area and has access to sewer and water hookup. The zoning amendment application meets the requirements of the district's bylaws and policies. Therefore, staff recommend council proceed with third reading of the bylaw. That concludes my presentation for this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Powell. So I'll turn first to members of council to see if you have any questions regarding this item of staff. Go ahead, Councillor Beddoes.
Yeah, to staff, it's 1934. The proposal, of course, is to split it into 2 lots. My understanding is that each of these lots could have a duplex on them. Is that correct?
Correct, subject to meeting the zoning regulations for setbacks.
Sure, and my understanding of the zoning is that could put 2 duplexes on it. The other question I have, and when it was before us before, does the applicant live there now, or is it rental property? 1934. Do you know that answer?
I have heard 2 different responses on that. I did hear that they had lived there, but then I had also heard that it was possibly being rented out as well. So I haven't been able to confirm one way or the other.
Okay, thank you. You've answered my questions. Thank you very much.
Other questions for staff?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Councillor Bateman.
I'm curious. I respect the applicant's rationale to wish to provide a home for their daughter. I'm just wondering, and I've heard this in other contexts, and it's wonderful that families are seeking opportunities to be on the same property. However, in terms of general best practices for decisions of this kind, and given how life changes and things shift, could you tell me how much we should hold that as a value in our decision, if that makes sense?
I believe I understand the question. In consideration of how staff reviews the proposal, Given that this is a land use consideration, the use as it is being proposed has to be considered in terms of what zoning is being proposed by the applicant, and does that achieve the goals of the official community plan? And given this application that's before you, staff have determined that it does meet the goals of the official community plan, and that this proposed rezoning could facilitate the future subdivision to create an additional lot.
Okay, well, thank you for that answer. Can I redirect that to our CAO, who has some deep knowledge of local government practice? Thank you. As does Mr. Powliuk, of course.
There could be tools that we could use, like a covenant, but I don't think that those are reasonable in this case. And if you're asking, are there tools that we can ensure that this the same family stays on these two lots, there's really no tools for us to ensure that.
Thank you, Councillor Bateman. Other speakers? I would say that that should have no bearing, really. Thanks for letting us know, but it really is not relevant, really. Okay, so seeing that there's no other questions from members of council, I'll ask our corporate officer. I'm not seeing notes of any registered speakers. Is the applicant even online?
Thank you, Your Worship. No, I have no registered speakers, nor do I have an applicant registered to this item.
Okay, so in this case, so we have no members of public to speak on this, and so it just goes back to really the technical advice that has been, and report put forward by our staff. Okay, so seeing that, I will now close the public hearing, as the public hearing is specific to items 7.1 and 7.2. And now, Council, we're going to look at 7.1. So now that the public hearing is closed, the staff recommendation here is that Council give third reading to the bylaw cited as zoning amendment bylaw number 809-600-85, 2021, and that is for 5627 Woodlands Road. So Councillor St. Pierre is moving third. Seconded by Councillor Beddoes. So now on the motion specifically, Councillor St. Pierre, any comment, please?
Just briefly, I do think that it does fit into the character of that particular neighborhood in Cicinos. I also think that the size of the lots does allow for future resilience in terms of actually growing food and such. I do think that there is a risk of rural sprawl, if you will, but that's already baked into the equation at this point in time, and we have to actually operate by our present OCP, that we don't have an option of prognosticating into the future and trying to figure out what we might make a decision on at this point in time. So I think we have to make our decision based on our present OCP, and that's why I'm going to put this forward.
Thank you. Councillor Beddoes, any comment?
Yeah, the only one was the OCP. We have to deal with the document before us today, and that is our present OCP. And it sounds like the applicant took it to heart and has got a proposal that meets all the requirements, and I'm okay with it. I think we should move ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? Councillor Bateman?
Okay, I find this a really interesting moment in time, because back on November 26th of 2019, we rezoned the neighboring property, 5651 Woodlands, and that was in a 4-3 vote. And at the time, I was a rookie, and I'd campaigned on this idea of the pause, and I'd read in some local government Ubcm documents about land use decisions are expected to create certainty. I noted the fact that we'd amended our zoning bylaw 46 times since 2013 in the response to the wishes of applicants. I noted that the area is comprised of agricultural properties, 5-acre panhandle lots with 2 homes, a 12-acre parcel to the northwest. I noted that the decision of this kind would set a precedent, and I did note at the OCP 5.2 under Gateway Residential states, enhance the character of existing neighborhoods and protect the character of the Gateway area. And that night we had a number of people in opposition speaking out against that proposal, but it went ahead, and So here we are today, and I can see that our community is changing rapidly, that we have seeming consensus from everyone who's written in and spoken up tonight, with the exception of one individual. And I did speak with one of the neighbors who's lived across the street for 30-plus years on that 12-acre property I believe I referenced earlier. Her comments, and I believe they've been captured in some correspondence that have been submitted. The road's too narrow and unsafe to accommodate growing volume of traffic. There's a wildlife corridor here. She was concerned about the character of the Woodlands neighborhood, but at the same time is in support of, she's not against growth. So I will vote in favor of this. However, I do worry that there are other RU4 lots in this neighborhood, and that we are continuing to set a precedent here. That road is at beyond capacity. I found a 2008 document from the Ministry of Transportation stating that Highway 14 was at capacity in 2008. So here comes, even without the duplexes, another, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 cars. And so, yeah, it's awkward, but I think yeah, so that's it for me now. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Bateman. Councillor Lajeunesse, any comment?
No, I think what's being proposed here fits in with the neighborhood. I used to live in that neighborhood myself, actually, many years ago, and this bit of infill development will be well suited to that area. So I'm going to vote in favor.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Lajeunesse. I have nothing further to add in that I support this application as well. I do think Harborview Road in particular is receiving quite a volume of traffic, not necessarily from the residents, but just as others are accessing Harborview Park, for example, and it's been discovered through the pandemic. And so I think that's where having the trail here for the residents to safely make their way to that beautiful green space is important. And certainly as we make our way through the Transportation Master Plan and deal with necessary upgrades to our infrastructure, we will need to also turn our attention to places like Harborview that also bring in a lot of traffic from other areas because of the regional park that's at the far end of it. I also think that affordability is another factor, and inclusivity as we build our community is important going forward. So I'll leave it at that. So I see no other members of council present here and nothing further to add. So I'm going to call the question on the motion, which is third reading. So all those in favor, please. And that is carried unanimous. Okay, thank you. So to the applicant, there is still one more step. We do need to adopt the bylaw, and that'll come forward at an upcoming meeting. So on that, I'll turn council's attention then to item 7.2, which is zoning amendment bylaw number 818-600-88-2021, 1934 Powliuk Crescent. And then this is that council give third reading to the bylaw cited as zoning amendment bylaw number 818-600-88-2021. Councillor St. Pierre is moving it, seconded by Councillor Lajeunesse. On the motion?
I think that this is the type of density that we actually do need, and it's appropriately placed. Future considerations in terms of who might own it or live it are not really relevant to that. We actually need that kind of density in order to have walkable communities that we can use in the future.
Thank you. Any comments, Councillor Lajeunesse?
No, I would agree with that. The existing property is a little bit of a mess, but I think that would be up to bylaw to clean that up.
Thank you. Councillor Beddoes?
Yes, thank you very much, Your Worship. I'm opposed to this. If you refer to page 3 of the presentation, if you look at 1934 and the adjacent properties, we're going to cut 1934 not quite in half and put possibly 4 homes into that one block. And if you look at all the adjacent ones, we have some duplexes across the street, you have a duplex next door to it. I think that to stay in the character of the neighborhood, 1934 certainly could support a duplex, but not 2 duplexes or 4 suites. I think that changes the whole character of the street, and you know, whether the applicant lives there or not, I have not been able to find out. I did go knock on the door the other day, but nobody was home. So I think it'd be better served in 1934, just put a duplex on there, not 2 of them. So I stand opposed to this development.
Thank you, Councillor Beddoes. Anything further from members of council? No. So this item has been moved and seconded. I'll call the question then. All those in favor of third? Any opposed? Councillor Bateman and Beddoes are opposed, so the motion carries, as I am in favor. That's 3 versus 2. 1, 2, 3, and 2. No, we need 4 for quorum. Quorum is 4, but majority prevails in this case. Okay? Okay, thank you, everyone. For those of you that are online for those particular items, you are, of course, welcome to stay with us for the rest of the meeting, and it's up to you whenever you choose to exit. You're also welcome to view the webcast at any point in time. If you so like. That's live through the YouTube channels. It might have a bit of a delay because of the way that connectivity works, but I'll leave that with you. Okay, so next up is item 8, adoption of meeting minutes. So for council meeting minutes, we'll do them as a block. I have the July 12th.
Excuse me, Your Worship.
Sorry?
Development variance permit.
Oh, goodness, sorry. Yes. There is a development permit with variance. I missed that, sorry. It's item 7.3, which is 2489 Otter Point Road. Yes, go ahead. And this has its own public input section. Turn it over to staff, please.
Thank you. Districts received a development permit application for a proposed 7-lot Bearland strata subdivision for the property located at 2489 Otter Point Road. Application also includes a variance request to reduce the required natural boundary setback to a pond from the required 30 meters to 15 meters. Subject property is currently zoned neighborhood rural residential RU5 under the zoning bylaw. It's designated community residential in the official community plan and had 1 single-family dwelling that was recently approved for demolition by the Building Safety Division. Surrounding land uses include RU4 properties, small-scale agricultural RU3, large lot residential R1, and medium lot residential R2 properties. Proposed development was reviewed against the official community plan development permit area number 2, which is the community growth area, and comprehensive development designated areas. An important goal of the official community plan is to increase the supply of a diverse range of affordable and attainable housing in Souk. The proposed development meets official community plan policies for housing as it provides housing for diverse needs of individuals and families of varying income levels and demographics, and supports the creation of rental housing in a variety of forms such as secondary and small suites. Developments within the growth area follow the provincial riparian area regulations as determined by a qualified environmental professional and should include information regarding potential impacts to the proposed development, mitigation options, and design alternatives. Purpose of the RU5 zone is to allow for a minor increase in density for residential parcels of land located outside of the sewer specified area, but on land specifically designated as gateway residential or community residential in the official community plan. Under the RU5 zone, a property owner is permitted to construct a single-family dwelling or duplex, as well as either 1 secondary suite or 1 small suite on a lot with a single-family dwelling. Minimum lot size for subdivision purposes is 2,500 square meters. As proposed, the new subdivision development will be a Bearland strata with a common access road and cul-de-sac. The applicable Strata Property Act allows for flexibility in lot sizes, but that the average lot size must still meet the requirements of the local government authority zoning bylaw, which this proposal intends to do. Average new lot size for the 7-lot Bearland Strata subdivision is over 2,500 square meters, as required by the RU5 zone. Existing location of the pond enables future development on proposed strata lots 5 and 6, which has resulted in a request to reduce the required 30-meter natural boundary setback. The existing identified watercourse does not require a setback reduction based on its present location. Following provincial regulations, the qualified environmental professional has recommended a SPIA setback of 15 meters and has made recommendations to manage the pond and for the identified watercourse. All of the provincial reviews and approvals have been provided as per the qualified environmental professional's report. Subject property was rezoned to RU5 back in 2019 to permit the creation of these proposed 7 bare lot strata parcels. In 2020, the District of Sault amended the zoning bylaw requiring this 30-meter setback to an identified natural boundary of water in alignment with the provincial guidelines for riparian assessment areas of 30 meters from a watercourse or body of water. Planning staff have evaluated the application against the relevant development permit guidelines in the official community plan. The qualified environmental professional has recommended the streamside protection enhancement area setback of 15 meters as per their riparian assessment report, and has made recommendations to manage the pond area. Based on this, staff support the issuance of the development permit and support the proposed setback reduction variance to the pond as requested by the applicant with this proposal. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Okay, questions for staff on the presentation? Go ahead, Councillor Bateman.
So this is another one of those bigger picture questions, because people ask me, what is the point of a provincial 30-meter riparian setback requirement if it is so routinely overturned? So I've tried to answer, and I've failed, perhaps, to their satisfaction anyway. So could you help me out, Mr. McInnes or Powliuk?
Certainly. So with many of the pieces of provincial legislation that have come through over the past year or so, this being one of them, we made the efforts to update our zoning bylaw so that they would be in alignment with those provincial requirements. As such, the recommendation from the province is to have a minimum 30-meter setback. Now, that minimum 30-meter setback isn't an absolute requirement in proposals that can have a qualified environmental professional indicate that a lesser setback can be provided. Other municipalities also have lesser setbacks in their zoning bylaw. However, we've taken the path to go with what the provincial recommendation was. If somebody were to propose development near a streamside protection area, if they are able to provide for that development proposal outside the 30-meter setback area, a qualified environmental professional wouldn't be required to make this request for a variance. It just so happens in these instances where they're within that 30 meters, we do need that technical analysis to be forwarded off to the province and accepted by the province to suggest that there wouldn't be any adverse effects to the SPIA area, and also for that professional to make those recommendations for environmental protection as part of a future proposal. So recommendations provided within our zoning bylaw, but of course there are provisions to have a professional provide their more detailed on-the-ground analysis and make those recommendations for a variance if appropriate.
Okay, thank you. I'll try to remember all that for the next time that question inevitably comes up. Okay.
But you can watch the webcast.
I could, and I'll
Yes.
take notes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions from staff, or pardon me, from council to staff? Okay. Yes, okay, go ahead, St. Pierre, Councillor St. Pierre.
Just very briefly, Mr. Paolo, I noticed that we have a recurring theme, of course, that we keep on taking cash in lieu for parkland dedications. And I'm curious, and this is not specific to this particular proposal, but just in a general way, are there other models in terms of parkland dedications that might not be as costly to the developer and potentially wouldn't require our Parks Department to actually take on responsibilities that they're not prepared for because they're not within our master plan? And I'm thinking of things like having rain gardens on site, potential trail amenities, hedgerows for wildlife, community gardens. These are just off the top of my head, but it seems to me that often we're taking cash in lieu, which is a pittance, in terms of what we could have instead, which would simply be habitat, more trees, potential growing space that could actually serve the new residents and potentially increase the value of the properties anyway. So I'm wondering if you're aware of any models or if there's any work that we can do in the district to move towards such a model.
Perhaps if I could just seek a little bit further clarification then. So the expectation would be is if there was to be land dedicated as parkland as part of their subdivision proposal, that the operations and maintenance of those parklands would not be conducted by the district, it would be by another entity.
Correct, or potentially not requiring maintenance to speak of. I know that there's actually been dedications behind a property that I know reasonably well. Sorry, it's owned by the district, but the homeowners have actually just taken it over completely. This isn't really a problem if you put in a few trees and it's clear that you can't take the tree down. Having a rainwater garden that could actually help with stormwater management would be another good example of something that wouldn't necessarily require a lot of maintenance. Simply having a community garden as part of a strata of an area might also be something that could be maintained by the residents. I'm curious as to whether other models that wouldn't actually place undue cost on the district or taxpayers could actually improve amenities locally in these small developments.
Staff could look at other models that may have been adopted from other municipalities. Certainly our main concern would be if there is another entity that is administering maintenance, if that's so required with these, that it's something that's able to be continued on without ultimate forfeiting back to the district to maintain those after the fact. Our main goal, knowing that we've gone through a Parks and Trails master plan process, is that we've identified where those assets are required to be provided as parkland, and then ultimately there is a cost to maintaining those as well as any other types of infrastructure upgrades in those parklands, and that's where the cash in lieu component does support that process. So altering that model that we currently have in place would need further analysis to report back to council as how we can still obtain those goals that we have from our Parks and Trails master plan, but also if it's council's desire to look at those other options that you mentioned.
Thank you.
Question, Councillor Beddoes?
Yeah, for staff, it's probably in here somewhere, but what year was it zoned? 2006, was it?
2019.
2019, okay. I don't know why I had 2006 here, okay. Thank you.
Okay, I'll turn now to our corporate officer. Do we have any members of the public for this item specifically, for 2489 Otter Point Road?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I have two registered speakers. The first is Susan Belford. Ms. Belford, if you'd like to turn on your camera and your microphone, please address council.
Hi there. I'm tilting at windmills. I just want to point out that this lot, it's not really a low increase of density because each of the 7 lots could house up to 2 dwelling units. That's a potential 35 people living where one family lived before, but that ship has already sailed. My point tonight is that it's a lot of stress on that pond with the cul-de-sac encroaching on it like that. With pavement runoffs, errant soccer balls, conservatively 14 vehicles, if all of the lots have 2 dwellings, going around and going back and forth, there's lots of impact on that pond by new residents. Now, I understand that the professional report indicated that 10 meters would suffice, but I think that we all know now that just because we can do something doesn't mean that we should necessarily. It's true, this is a man-made wetland that we're talking about. It's not some pristine porous pool. But does this mean it's less valuable? Does it not have potential, if nurtured, to become a little tree grade, providing a smidgen of habitat and CO2 sequestration and a place for quiet reflection? Why not choose to contribute to the well-being of the Sioux community and the planet? And this builds on the point that Mr. St. Pierre just said, actually, by choosing to build less and preserve more and better. Leave the wetland alone. Reduce the lot number to 5, improve the quality of life for all the people living on that little piece of land by allowing them to share the pond, protect the natural environment in which we live, and maintain the environmental protection standards that BC and SUC has set, which will serve us into the future. This is the second time in just a few months that SUC has been asked to go against these regulations, and I think that, I'm hoping, esteemed representatives, that you don't make this a trend. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Belford.
The next registered speaker on this item is Steve Unger. Mr. Unger, if you'd like to turn on your camera and your microphone, please go ahead and address council.
Thank you, Your Worship. Again, Steve Unger, 6698 Helgeson Road. I am the RU3 neighbor to the east of the applicant property and, more importantly, the downhill neighbor. In my letter dated today, I outlined reasons why this variance under Bylaw 490 Section 3.22B should be denied. First, the variance application provides no social or environmental benefits to the District of SUC. The benefit of the additional lots is solely profit-driven. Were the seventh house to be social housing, low-income housing, then we would reevaluate our recommendation. Second, this pond serves an important ecological purpose in protecting Demamiel Creek. Over the past several years, stormwater and flooding and erosion are common occurrence within the Demamiel Creek Valley. This is a result of development along Otter Point Road and up Broom Hill, stripping away the forest. Trees and other stormwater catchments, including this pond, have been significantly reduced, while flooding has been significantly increased. This pond and the land around it play a key role to buffer and retard stormwater from stripping salmon spawning grounds. Third, and selfishly, I vehemently disagree with a statement in the environmental report that says impacts to the adjacent properties are not anticipated. This is not true. I have stripped fields and eroded roads to prove it. As more development happens up Broom Hill and along Otter Point Road, the stormwater from those cleared properties flows across mine. This causes significant erosion to our property and our infrastructure, costing us real money to repair every year. Cash in lieu will not fix this. However, these are not the most important reasons to deny this variance. Your values are. In September 2020, you amended Bylaw 490 to extend the watercourse setback to 30 meters. You did this because keeping SUC green is a priority to you in accordance with the province. You did this because you want to ensure that all future choices and decisions in SUC are looked at with a green lens. You did this to protect all the inhabitants of SUC, not just the developers. I applaud you for taking this bold green step forward. However, and with all due respect, changing a bylaw is the easy part. Enforcing that bylaw and saying no is the hard part. Remember back to when you updated Bylaw 490 in the first place. Remember the values and beliefs that drove that. And then do the right thing now, stick to your values, and deny this variance. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Unger. Are there any other speakers with us this evening?
No, Your Worship, there are not.
Okay, thank you to members of the public for joining with us tonight. So, Council, I'll turn your attention back to this item before us here, the development permit with variance, 2489 Otter Point Road. The recommendation from staff is that Council issue development permit PLN 015, I need my glasses, sorry. Development permit PLN 01589, 2489 Otter Point Road, for the purpose of facilitating a 7-lot bare land strata subdivision, and that council approve a variance to Section 3.22 setbacks water of zoning bylaw number 600, 2013, to reduce the required natural boundary setback to a pond from 30 meters to 15 meters. That is the recommendation from staff, and I'll see if we have someone here to move this.
Could I ask a follow-up question before we move, or am I too late?
I'll move it just to get it on the table.
Okay, Councillor Beddoes is moving it to get it on the floor. Is there a seconder? Councillor Lajeunesse is seconding to get it on the floor. Okay, your question, Councillor Bateman.
Yeah, through you to staff, I'm curious if we do reject this variance, the 7 homes would be, there are 2 homes in play or 2?
Strata lots 5 and 6.
5 and 6, okay. All right. Strata lot 6 potentially could be relocated a little further to the west to be outside that 30-meter zone.
We would have to work with the applicant and their consultant to see how that potential siting would look on that.
Okay, thank you.
So what has occurred on this land then, since it's been rezoned? It's been cleared from the photo that we see in front of us.
My understanding, it's been cleared, and in talking with staff, the current property owner acquired the property after the clearing had occurred, and up to this point now the demolition permit for removal of the single-family dwelling.
Okay, so the owner that rezoned it is no longer the owner, right? It was rezoned and then sold.
I believe that to be the case, yes.
I see. Okay. Comments. I'll open up that I'm not keen on the variance. We were a bit torn in rezoning it, and then there is an expectation. I think the points made by Mr. Unger are spot on. We knew that there's changes, and we know that the value of green space in our community is important. In this case, it was obviously rezoned for the purpose of selling it, so someone has done well there, and then another entity has come in to acquire this. I think where I differ a bit from Councillor St. Pierre is the cash in lieu for parkland. In some cases, it doesn't have to be a developed park. Sometimes it's just nice to have some trees and some habitat that don't require any maintenance, but that are just habitat for various species and perhaps other ones. So I struggle to support this, given that we rezoned it, so make the zoning work. And in this case, they aren't able to, so which is why the setback is now needed, and now we have to shift things. And this is where I struggle with what we initially approve doesn't always compute to what comes out on the table here. This isn't service land. It is not infill land. It will require more vehicular uses. And whether the pond is human-made or not, all water lines are connected in our community. Everything is connected. And so I'll leave it at that. I'll go to Councillor St. Pierre.
Yeah, I don't think I can support this as it stands myself. I'm looking, for example, at our LCR, Low Carbon Resilience tool, and as Mr. Unger pointed out, this seems to be strictly about making a profit, and I have no objections to developers making a profit. That's how we actually get buildings, now it's how we get development. So there's no problems there at all. I actually would like to see better development and better profits for developers, but that also meets our needs. I don't actually see too many of our ticky boxes actually checked off in the LCR in terms of actually reducing the setback on the pond. I really don't. What's more, we've only recently made amendments, or considering amendments, I'm not sure where we're at in the process, to our DCCs to include stormwaters as one of the costs that we have to take on as a district when development happens. And unfortunately, that's been one of our gaps, and it's costing residents money when we have issues with stormwater management. So I think this is a good place to basically say, no, we actually need that space to handle the stormwaters. As Mr. Unger pointed out, that particular pond is probably handling the issues from other parcels, having nothing to do with this particular parcel in general. The water systems are actually complex, and messing with them isn't necessarily something we want to do because it does affect the neighbors, and it does affect everything. So having said that, I would prefer to not defeat the motion and actually, put this development off for a year or whatever it is. I think, if I recall correctly, if we defeat the motion, then I don't think the developer has a chance to work again with staff to actually bring us a new proposal. Is that correct?
If a application is defeated, there would be a 12-month period before they could come forward for reconsideration of the same proposal.
And as I said, I'm not really here to try and chew up a developer and eat into their profits. I would prefer not to defeat this motion, so I'd like another recourse at this point in time to send this back to staff and have a different proposal come forward.
So that'll be a referral motion. It's been moved and seconded, so you could make a motion then to refer this back to staff?
I would like to make a motion to refer this back to staff.
Okay, does that require a seconder on a referral? Referrals, okay, a seconder to refer back to staff has been seconded by Councillor Lajeunesse. Anything further on referring it back? This doesn't, and then I hear what you're saying, is that it does allow the applicant to work with staff and to bring something different back in a timely manner. Defeating it would park it for up to 12 months, and then they'd have to start all over. So this does help move the process along. So we have a referral. Would you like to speak on this, Councillor Beddoes? You did move it, so...
Yeah, the referral was threw a little bit of a wrench into it. I don't disagree with the referral part of it. I just wanted to make some comments that, staff did everything right. They asked for a professional recommendation, which said that it was okay to go to 15 meters from 30. And I was ready to go for that, but then I heard Mr. Unger speak, and he made a lot of sense, and he's a neighbor, and it impacts him greatly. So I would support Councillor St. Pierre's other motion to defer this to see if the developer can come up. Otherwise, I would defeat the variance.
Okay, anything further from members of council? Councillor Bateman?
Yeah, just some clarity here. So in this referral, if we were to go ahead tonight and vote, and the vote was to deny the variance, would the applicant not still have full freedom to move forward with the project minus the two properties within the 30-meter zone?
If the applicant can determine an alternative configuration for their 7 lots that wouldn't require the variance, they would be able to go forward with it if council approved that development permit for 7 lots.
Right. So that this wouldn't be in front of us tonight at all without that need for the variance, of course. Yeah. Maybe. No.
Development permits, not all come before us. I just can't remember where they do and they don't in some cases.
That's correct, yeah. This one would be outside of the town center. I'd have to refer back to the delegation bylaw to see if there is opportunity for that. This being a subdivision, I can't recall a recent delegated subdivision file that was administered by staff for approval, so I'd have to refer back to that.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Just on that point, Councillor Bateman, this is where, okay, it does provide the applicant with options. So if they decide to reduce the number of lots or make some changes, they'll need to work with our staff anyway to obtain a development permit. Then depending on what that case may be, it might come back to us or it may not. But in which case, the variance on the pond would not happen. So if they find a different way to site those that doesn't require the setback change, then staff may be able to issue that development permit and they could carry on. Or in this case, it might need to return back to us. But it does allow some room, whereas if we reject it, then that's it. There's no, that's the 12-month hold. But I think this is where in this market we'll likely see some different activity, or they could choose to leave it. That's up to them. Is that, just confirming that is correct, what I've said?
Yes, Your Worship, that all sounds correct. If the motion, if the application is defeated, then the only thing that couldn't come back in that 12-month period is the variance. And just a note on the process around the changes to the riparian area protection regulations that happened in 2019. We did go with the 30-meter setback, but with the full expectation that if a qualified environmental person makes a recommendation, and that recommendation is also approved by environment, that is why it's got a recommendation from administration this evening for acceptance.
And we understand that, because that is the policy and the direction that we gave you. I think it's just from the timing where council is sitting as we now make final decisions on this, as you're hearing, some are not comfortable with a variance at all. Work it out, make it work with the zone. And that's what we want to see. There was concerns around even us doing this rezoning in the first place when it came forward. However, we did, and now we're seeing it adjust, and that's the problem that we have. And the climate's changing. Was there a heat dome that we talked about in last year? No, like that's new, and it's constantly changing, and that's cause for concern to all of us. Councillor St. Pierre?
This might also fall in lines with some of my previous comments about parkland amenities. This is an opportunity, and I don't necessarily expect this to happen with this development, but for example, in similar developments, or potentially this one, someone could actually get a variance by putting another man-made wetland. So a further man-made wetland could be a parkland dedication in and of itself, which could permit, encroaching to a certain degree as long as we had an environmental professional to guarantee that this wasn't going to cause any problems. But given all the development that's been happening in the stormwater management, this is the type of thing that could exactly fall in line with, here's a parkland dedication that benefits the developer, the community, and the whole ball of wax, and helps us with stormwater management. So I'm interested to see what we can come up with, and I prefer, as our mayor has pointed out, to give maximum flexibility to staff and the developer in terms of if they do need a variance to be able to come back to council.
Okay, so we're on the referral piece first, that the application be referred back to staff to work with the applicant on a proposal that more closely aligns with bylaw requirements. So that's been moved and seconded, so I'll call the question on the referral piece. All those in favor, please. And that's carried unanimously, and I think that's it for this. It's been moved and seconded, it's referred, so we'll leave it at that. Okay, thank you, everyone. Okay, so now we'll move on to number 8, adoption of minutes. So we can do these in a block for council meeting minutes, July 12th, 2021 regular meeting, July 19th, 2021 committee of the whole, July 26th, 2021 regular meeting, and August 30th, 2021 special council meeting. So the motion is that the following meeting minutes of council be adopted as circulated. Do I have a mover? Moved by Councillor St. Pierre and seconded by Councillor Bateman. Any questions or corrections?
Yes, just on the regular council meeting of July 26th, page 3 of 14, page 155 in the agenda, zoning amendment bylaw 813 regarding 2614 Otter Point Road. Now that indicates a unanimous approval by council, when in fact it was a 4-2 vote, with Councillor St. Pierre and myself opposed. And I know you do like to include reasons for opposition in your minutes, and from my perspective, it was this loss of a mature second growth forest on that particular piece of property.
Okay, our staff will take that away.
We would amend the voting on that, but we don't typically include reasons for opposition.
You have, in the past, in my direct experience, have included reasons for opposition, but perhaps that policy has changed. Thank you.
Staff can follow up on that, so the main thing is the voting record to be clear, so thank you for capturing that. Okay, so I'll look for a motion to receive and adopt, please, as amended. All in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, our next item up is item 12, and this is our consent agenda. So this here is that items 12.1 and 12.2 be adopted by general consent. So that's moved by Councillor St. Pierre.
Sorry, Your Worship, the delegation is the next item on the agenda.
Oh, goodness me. No, I'm not. It's just 8, and then it's even highlighted. I'm really sorry to our delegation. Okay, item 9, 9.1, Delegations, which is a ban of cosmetic herbicides and pesticides. And Ms. Yvonne Court is online joining with us tonight. Ms. Court, thank you for joining with us virtually, and you have 5 minutes for your delegation, and I'm going to set a timer at 5 minutes. And as soon as you start talking, I will press start. Thank you.
Esteemed Mayor Tate and honorable members of council, my name is Yvonne Court and I live at 6166 Calvert Road in Soup. I'm appearing before council today to request that council adopt a bylaw to ban the use of cosmetic pesticides, herbicides in Soup. In 2017, a group of Soup Transition Town members, aware and alarmed by studies and reports that emphasize the damage that pesticides, herbicides are doing to people and the environment, met to discuss requesting that the then Soup Council enact a bylaw to ban the use of cosmetic pesticide herbicides in the district of Soup. Plans were moving ahead to present to council the need for a bylaw, but were changed as a result of information the province of BC was working to enact legislation that would result in the aforementioned ban. On June 3rd of this year, a letter to the editor appeared in the Soup News Mirror reporting the spraying of the pesticide Roundup at a Soup school. This letter resulted in members of the Transition Soup pesticide group investigating and discovering that no action was underway at the provincial level to end the use of cosmetic pesticides, herbicides in BC. Reasons for the districts of Soup to enact a ban on the cosmetic use of pesticides, herbicides bylaw. 4 years later, after our initial work, the province has not yet moved forward with any legislation. In 2016, 5 years ago, over 180 municipalities in Canada had enacted bylaws, of which at least 50 are BC municipalities. All provinces, with the exception of BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, have enacted pesticide restrictions. The toxic effects of pesticides. March 17, 2017, Bas Tungkut, United Nations Special Rapporteur on Toxics, said in a statement to the Human Rights Council that excessive use of pesticides are very dangerous to human health, to the environment, and it is misleading to claim that they are vital to ensuring food security. The Special Rapporteur pointed to research showing that pesticides are responsible for an estimated 200,000 acute poisoning deaths each year. Chronic exposure to pesticides has been linked to cancer, Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease, hormone disruption, developmental disorders, and sterility. On August the 10th, 2021, Reuters reported that in Frankfurt, Bayer, who bought Monsanto, lost a third appeal against a U.S. court that awarded damages to customers blaming their cancers on use of its glyphosate-based weed killers. Health Canada itself suggests limiting use of pesticides, reducing any unnecessary exposure, and registered just as acceptable risk. Scientific study after study is showing that exposure to pesticides poses serious health risks for not fully developed children. Serious concerns have been raised regarding the approach to pesticide registration taken by Health Canada. A report on acute pesticide poisonings in Canada by David Suzuki in 2007 found that over 6,000 cases of pesticide poisonings are reported annually, with almost half the cases being children under 6. Studies done a year after bans on the use of cosmetic pesticides have shown that pesticide concentrations in local stream waters were significantly lowered. I'd also like to note that each spring a pallet of Roundup is in Home Hardware, and it all goes. All of that pesticide and all the other chemical pesticides eventually end up in our watershed, not to mention all the other chemical herbicides, pesticides, drugs, etc. that we use. The impact on biodiversity. The Living Planet Index, one of the most comprehensive measures of global biodiversity, reports an average decline of 68%. 68% in biodiversity in the past 50 years. This biodiversity loss is catastrophic and clear evidence of the damage human activity is doing to the natural world. The Earth is estimated to be 4.5 billion years old, and it took that long to create a wonderful array of plants, birds, insects, fish, mammals that inhabit the Earth. These creatures evolved slowly through trial and error over long periods of time. Many of them didn't make it. Some Earth creations were successful and others weren't. The invention of synthetic pesticides by humans, and in fact, a lot of the chemicals we use today were not invented until the 1930s and only became used widely after World War II. That is not even 100 years. And I can't express enough, 100 years, and the damage these chemicals are having to evolution. Pesticides have an effect on biodiversity. The loss of insects, fish, reptiles, birds, mammals through immediate toxic effects on directly exposed organisms and long-term effects through loss of habitats and food sources.
Thank you very much, Ms. Court. We're at 5 minutes. Do you have a few more? Do you just briefly want to wrap up?
Yeah, this wraps the web. There's cocktail. I'm echoing.
Try again.
There's a cocktail mix of pests that we don't know what they do. And already underway, a number of Souk Council members included in their election platforms that they were going to implement a ban on the use of cosmetic pesticides. The new OCP, policy 4.2.4.3, says that that you need to have a bylaw. And the Ubcm resolutions book mentions that BC needs a bylaw. I think Transition Suit will be doing a presentation to the Committee of the Whole, and I support that work completely. The reason I'm making this presentation is because when we started the Pesticide Committee in 2017, it was because I had realized that pesticides were such a threat to health. And my own family, who has pretty well every member of my immediate family has health issues, which I believe can be linked to different toxic chemicals that we've used over the years, including pesticides. And so I really felt an urgency to do something about it. I'd like to thank you to allowing me to present to Council today, and for each of you for donating so much of your time and energy to the community. I know it is a lot of hard work, and I am a grateful community member, but I really hope that we can get the bylaw passed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Court. And then if Councillor Bateman is prepared, we have been advocating to the Ministry of Environment on this item specifically. Councillor Bateman, could you please just summarize where we're at?
Yeah, I'll just, a little prelude. Traditionally, I have stepped out of any discussions regarding Transition Souk initiatives. I am a co-founder of this pesticide education group. However, I did get a legal opinion back earlier this year that if the matter is of community interest and is an advocacy matter, I am welcome to, I am not in any form of conflict of interest, only if it is to be of fiscal benefit to the organization. So in this case, this is an advocacy matter. Yes, indeed, I was one of those campaigning on this concept of the need for a pesticide bylaw in Souk. It is in the 2010 OCP as well, and it's great to see it reiterated in the draft document. The decision was made last year. We made a decision to go for advocacy to get a provincial ban. And that has been in the Strat Plan advocacy list of items. We met with the mayor and I, and Ms. Musada were on the call, with Krista Zacharias-Homer, who is the Director of Integrated Pest Management for the province through the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change Strategy. So at that time, we advocated for a provincial pesticide update of the current strategy, which is focused on education and point of purchase education and certification if you're using homeowner certification program. And what we heard back was that was the current approach, that there was no plan in the short term to do a general amendments to the integrated pest management regulations. We also talked about rodenticides, and it's good news that there has been a provincial moratorium now on the use of second-generation anticoagulant rodenticides, which can be so damaging to the food chain, to predators of those dead rats. So I've been in touch again with Ms. Zacharias-Homer, and she has reiterated that since 2016 amendment to the Integrated Pest Management Act, they have collected a number of suggestions on us how to proceed, and they will be considered when general amendments to the legislation are next scheduled. The reason Souk went forward to the province was that districts, and there are 40 municipalities across BC that have regulations at the moment, pesticide bylaws. The problem, of course, is that pesticides are regulated by provincial and federal governments, and municipalities do not have the authority to prevent their sale. We can, as these 40 other municipalities have done, bring in our own bylaw that expresses community will and asks our residents not to use these products. Enforcement is extremely difficult, which is why this integrated pest management at the provincial level is at least educating people at that point of purchase about the impacts. So the work goes on, the advocacy continues. I look forward to Transition Souk coming towards to a committee of the whole to continue this issue, which is so fundamental to our environmental health. And I would also suggest that the district extend an invitation to Ms. Zacharias Homer to join us for that session to describe provincial policies in greater detail than I've done here. And yeah, so that's all I've got to say on it.
Thank you, Councillor Bateman. So thank you for that update, and certainly more to come on this item in the near future. So thank you very much to our delegation, to Ms. Court. I hope that Councillor Bateman's comments back were a bit helpful, and we'll continue this conversation in the near future. Okay, so moving on in our agenda properly, according to numbers, number 10 is the report of the Chief Administrative Officer. So over to Mr. McInnes, please.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I know we've been through a lot tonight already, and we got lots left to go, but I do have a couple of items that I do want to bring Council up to speed on. First of all, I just want to extend my gratitude to all of those that were involved in Celebrate Souk on the weekend. It was a great event. So to all of the Planning Committee members, the members of the community groups, and especially Jennifer Royer-Collard, who put a ton of effort into that event. Thank you. I think that we all needed that. And secondly, I do want to just briefly touch on the announcements from UBCM last week. We had two $500,000 grants that were announced, Church Road Corridor and Church Road through Roundabout. I just want to make sure that Council and the public realize the work that we've done in grant applications this year. So strengthening communities' grant application in conjunction with the Souk Homeless Society, $431,000. BC Active Transportation Grant for Church Road, as I just said, $500,000. The Church Road Roundabout, $500,000. BC Hydro Tree Grant, $1,500. Otter Point Road Active Transportation, $1.8 million. Wastewater Treatment Plant Expansion, $4.6 million. The Sun River Multi-Box Sport Box, $892,000. Fire Smart Initiative, $73,950. And our Development Approvals Program grant application, $500,000. And the Otter Point and Church Road ICBC road markings, $50,000. That is well over $9.3 million in 2021. So just, again, my gratitude for everyone for all of their work in all of those applications. Great work. Fire Chief, we do have our last interview tomorrow, and we will be then in a position to hopefully make an offer. Sue Wilkie, as you know, has had to go back to Alberta to help with family issues, but she is still working remotely and doing a ton of work for us. The Community Economic Development Strategy will be going to our leadership and our coordinating teams at their next meeting, and to the Community Economic Development Committee on Friday at their meeting, and we're still on target to have that presented to Council in November of this year. So that work continues. And we have costed out the 7% solution that the Climate Action Committee has provided to us. We're going to bring that back to the next Climate Action Committee meeting, because there's a really large spectrum on what the municipal contribution to any possible top-ups, in particular for the energy retrofits for current housing stock. Some communities are, the range that we saw is between $0 and $6,000 per application per top-up. That gives us a big range from $0 to about $1.5 million. So we do want the committee to help us with a recommendation on where we should be on that spectrum. So that work continues. And I think that's it for my update this evening, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Mr. McInnes, and thank you to all your work for staff in getting us ready for those grants, and of course, council supporting those applications. To members of the public that are viewing, we know and recognize that the road work is inconvenient, not convenient. It'll be convenient after it's done. But we are progressing with other plans, and sometimes the timelines don't work the greatest for us, but when the federal government throws us money, we have to use it in an allocated time frame, and we need to use it. These are 100% funded applications, so sending money back and paying it out of taxes just doesn't seem to make sense to do it at a time when it's more convenient. But it's always inconvenient to somebody. For grants that we are not successful with, that doesn't mean that advocacy has stopped. It means that it's just ramping up even more. So more to come on that, because I'm disappointed with the outcome of some, so seeking advice from others in terms of what we can do to achieve those grants, because we need them in our community. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question for CAO. In the paper, I think 2 days ago, there was a thing about Suit getting $1 million. Is that the $500,000 one?
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted clarification. That wasn't another $1 million that was coming. And just for staff and our CAO, congratulations on getting us that money over the last year or two. It's made a big difference. You look around town, and I know the construction is annoying, but we're getting on with things, and things that we identified in the beginning of our term, that we wanted to see some things happen here, and you're making it happen, and that's what you're paid for. So that's good. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you to our CAO and to his leadership team and to all of staff. So moving on in the agenda is item number 11, and this is the public question and comment period. So council, at the start of tonight's meeting, we did extend this period of time to up to 20 minutes so that we could allow for potentially 10 speakers, of which we have 2 minutes allocated to each one. And further, also just note that we do also have written submissions from members of the public that have come forward to us tonight that should all inform part of our decision-making process. So I will ask our corporate officer to please introduce the members of the...
Excuse me,
sorry?
Your Worship, this is all to do with the AAP, so then I should recuse myself, should I not?
Let me confirm that. If it's just public input, does councillors... There's no decision to be made here, so does Councillor Beddoes need to step out during public input?
My reading of the community charter says that once a declaration is made, that member cannot participate in any discussion on the item. So I would suggest it's appropriate to leave.
Okay, and then just seeing, because in this format, our staff have been able to ask the members of the public which item they're speaking to. So I think that does confirm that these folks are speaking on the AAP. So with that guidance, I would suggest you step out. If I hear that a member of the public is speaking on something different, then I'll flag that to you, and you can always also get the webcast to hear those comments so that you're not missing other valuable input to inform on a different matter.
Where am I going to hide?
I believe we have 2 chair options for you to select from in the hallway, so you could decide which one.
Plug my ears, though, or?
Well, maybe just ask that you close the door.
Okay. Thank you.
And that you choose whichever chair. It's good to have options. So at this point, though, I will ask our corporate officer if you could please introduce the members of the public. And just a reminder, you may speak for up to 2 minutes, and I will set the timer at 2. And I will start this. Oh, we also have another live one right in front of me that I can also look at as well for 2 minutes. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a reminder to the first three speakers who also submitted written comment, Council has received those. It is your choice whether or not you wish to read those pieces of correspondence within your 2 minutes or provide new information. So our first registered speaker is Dr. Lintern. So if you'd like to turn on your camera and your microphone, it's your opportunity to address Council.
Is that correct now?
Yes, it's certainly on, sir. We can see most of your face, more your hair, though.
Oh.
If you're able to maybe just maybe tilt it down a bit more, then we can see you. It's up to you. There we go.
Is that better?
That is, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Your Honor and members of council, I did put in a couple of submissions, but I'll try and be brief. We got 2 minutes. I don't agree with the development of the lines proposed in the park. I was glad to hear the mayor a few minutes ago saying green land in our community is needed. And of course it'll be parking lots and a building and maybe a band shell, and it's certainly not going to be a nice park. But more than that, I'm worried about the way it's been dealt with this AAP process. It's been a laugh, really. The public knew nothing about it. The council didn't help us in any way become educated in this matter. We were given a very short space of time, and right in the middle of a pandemic, and the children going back to school, and a federal election, and we're supposed to, and what we decided in 3 weeks, we didn't quite make it. We were about 100 votes short. If we'd have had one more day, particularly if we'd have been at Celebrate Souk, we would certainly have made it, because so many people came up and said they didn't agree with Lions taking 2 acres of parkland. So I wish we'd had the finished date hadn't been when it was. Anyway, that's the way it was. I don't think the council should believe that they have the right just to continue with this whole project and lease this land now for 50 years just because we didn't get quite enough votes. Surely they wouldn't believe that. The other thing is, I don't know what about Murray Road. We've tried to find out if it's been sold or not sold, and if so, for how much. Because it seems to us that to sell Murray Road is important to the Lions to get enough money to carry on with the project they want to continue with.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Lintern. That's over 2 minutes now, and I do need to stick to the time as we have others speaking after you.
Oh, that's fair enough, right?
Yes, so thank you.
I don't think Murray Road for the people of Souk. It's only a benefit to the Lions. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you very much for joining with us tonight, Dr. Lintern.
If you'd like to turn your camera and microphone off, please, thank you. Our next registered speaker is Trevor Paul. If you'd like to turn on your camera and microphone, please go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear and see you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I appreciate it. I've lived in Souk for over 10 years now. I've never addressed council, but this issue has really motivated me to speak up and voice my opinion. John Phillips Park is an important community space for myself and our family. It's a place where we can engage and interact with other community members, fellow dog walkers, cyclists, runners, other families with small children. So we have a 4-year-old. He's drawn to the park. He's drawn to the pond and all the critters that live within and around it. We just really feel it would be a disappointment to see that park developed and paved over. And I'm really shocked, really, that council thinks this is a good idea. to move ahead with this initiative. It's our park, it's our green space, and it should be left alone. I believe you're required to leave it alone, which is why you've had to move ahead with this alternative approvals process. And that's really the second reason why I wanted to speak tonight. There's something about this process that really rubs me the wrong way. I think it rubs a lot of people in this town the wrong way. It feels like an underhanded way by council to move and push this initiative through. There's really been zero engagement on this issue. In past, I've seen poster boards on OCP and local businesses, signs around town. There was just a sign out by Cecinos on Budget 2022. Since this process started, I've received 2 leaflets like this in the Soup News Mirror with information about the OCP and Budget 2022, and yet nothing was sent or posted about this process in John Phillips Park. And despite that, over 1,000 people took the time to go online, find that form, fill it out, and physically drop it off at the Soup District office. And I hope council will take that as a sign. You're on the wrong track here.
Thank you, Mr. Paul.
Can I just finish, Mayor? I think you're on the wrong track here. And please, I hope you reconsider, and please just leave our green space alone. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Paul. Our next speaker, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Our next registered speaker is William Wallace. If you'd like to turn on your camera and microphone, please go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can now, thank you.
Okay. First of all, I was wondering why there's no announcement on the results of the APP. But anyway, we'll start. My decision to challenge the location of this project was always with the utmost respect for the Lions organization. For me, the answers always came back to saving an ecological sensitive green space in the town core, which is owned by all Soup residents. I estimate that the Lions project will have 24,000 square feet of asphalt road and parking, plus the installation of services connections for a large building of unknown specifications and cost to the public. Then there's the private condominium project with an asphalt parking for 100 cars. Adjacent to the condominium is an approved asphalt parking lot for 35 cars, where the market is presently held. This is over an acre of asphalt added to the area, in addition to the 1.9 acres for the Lions project. Is the Pond Meadows low-lying wetland area appropriate for such a large-scale development? This is not the vision outlined in the 2020 master plan that calls for full public engagement. My other concern is how the public had little prior knowledge of the Lions project until the APP was called. The APP vote lacks any credibility, as the Ministry of Municipal Affairs guidelines on when an AP should be conducted were totally ignored, as email votes approved under these guidelines was disallowed and that Otter Point residents were blocked from participating. We must all live different lives with the climate crisis, especially over the next few years, as we've all heard lately. We have only 9 years remaining to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. Wants may have to take a back seat to needs. A number of town officials have told me that they want a new modern community hall. Maybe we should examine our needs. The retrofit of the existing historic town hall.
Thank you, Mr. Wallace. We're at 2 minutes.
Can I just finish one thing? Maybe my age and limited time on this planet makes me passionate about saving the town core open green space. But finally, in an area that is 100 years, if we still exist, it'll be needed as a pedestrian area of solitude for an unrecognizable Soup community. Paid Paradise put up a parking lot. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, it's a park. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wallace.
Thank you, Your Worship. Our next speaker is Danny Willis. Mr. Willis, if you'd like to turn on your camera and microphone, please go ahead and address council.
My name is Danny Willis. I'm a member of the Souk Lions Club. I live here in Souk. I don't believe that the vote in the APP process really represents the feelings of the community of Souk. There are a number of people that were against it, and they use misleading and inaccurate information to aggressively push their point. This is not a clubhouse for the Souk Alliance. This is a community asset that has the potential to hold an emergency reception center that could be needed at any point in time, that could house a daycare which is needed. The daycare funding would help sustain the project. It could enhance the park usage by giving amenities and anchoring for big events such as Canada Day and the celebration of Souk like we just had. And it wouldn't make it so tenuous on the weather as to whether or not you would have an event. So this park building has been in the plans of District of Souk for over 15 years, but they haven't had the tax dollars to build it. So what we've been working on is being community partners and providing a way to produce this building without costing the taxpayers money. And it is not for us as Souk Alliance to have a clubhouse. It's a community asset for the betterment of residents of Souk. And that's what if it does go to an consent vote, that should be the question. Do you want a multi-purpose facility that is going to benefit Souk? And if you do you want to pay for it with taxes? Or do you want to use a community partner to pay for it? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Willis. Next speaker, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Our next registered speaker is Susan Belford. Ms. Belford, if you'd like to turn on your camera and microphone.
Hi there. Well, the many eloquent letters that you've received on this issue say most of what I'm thinking. I'd like to acknowledge the previous speaker. The project that the Lions would like to build has much to recommend it. It could be a really, really good project. It's just the wrong place for it. It would be an overall social good, right? But we have to remember that parks that are large enough to allow people to enjoy a moment's solitude in nature are also a social good. It is bad social policy to embrace one social good at the expense of the other. Souk Council should be in the business of expanding the community's pool of social goods, not reducing them. I've heard it said that it would be great to have an event in the park and have a facility like that as part of the park. And I think that would be great, except that maybe the perfect location for this project was one of the pieces of land directly adjacent to the park along Otter Point Road. But unfortunately, much of that land is to be developed into housing, which incidentally will put pressure on the park. So I'd also like to acknowledge that what other speakers have said about the way that this process was put forward. It was not a good process. It wasn't well publicized, and it was conducted during the very busy end of summer back to school in a pandemic time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Belford. Next speaker, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Two registered speakers have not come online, so I only have one more registered speaker, and that is Liza Dawson-Whisker. So if you'd like to go ahead and turn on your camera and microphone and address council.
Yes, hi. So I would like to second everything that has been said about the process and engagement during a pandemic and election. With all the development slated to happen or already underway, of additional houses along Otter Point and Woodlands Way, and all the building of the houses along the green belt leading up to Journey and Poirier schools, and also the slated development of the old Mulligans on Otter Point Road, which will already impede into the park. I think, the significant reduction of size of the park is a really bad idea. And at very least, this assessment should take place after the Mulligans development has been built and we see the impact on the park. Like the park is popular all year round with a wide demographic from kids tobogganing to the elderly walking on a level easy access path and enjoying being outdoors in community and in nature. This park is central in Souk, and with all the extra development, it is in itself a vital amenity to the community and should not be reduced in size or replaced by some other amenity, such as the Lions Club Community Centre.
Okay, thank you. We are at over 2 minutes now.
Okay.
Thank you for joining with us tonight. Next speaker, please.
That's all I have for registered speakers, so if council would care to read any of the additional correspondence that's included in the agenda package.
We have received other correspondence that has been posted since the agenda went out. So we do have correspondence from Dr. Lintern, Mr. Paul. I have a Spencer, Moss, Cole, Souk on Fire Taxpayers Group. I don't know, that's an anonymous group to me, and Mr. Wallace, who spoke tonight. And that'll be it for the correspondence.
There's additional correspondence in the supplementary
supplemental package as well. I have items from Ms. Critchlow and also from Ms. Leshinskaya. Pardon me for misspelling if I've obviously mispronounced your last name. So that concludes our public comment period for today. If we could please have Councillor Beddoes return to the room, please. Just comments on how this collides with the federal election. We didn't know that a federal writ was going to drop when we go about our council business, and it's difficult for local governments to plan our work around federal and provincial elections, who seemingly have the ability to drop the writ when it's convenient for them, whereas we actually have fixed election dates. Okay, but we'll speak more about that item when it comes forward. Our next item is item 12, which is our consent agenda. So this here is that items number 12.1 and 12.2 be adopted by general consent. Move adoption by Councillor St. Pierre and seconded by Councillor Bateman. Nobody's withdrawn anything, so I'll call a question. All those in favor, please. And that's unanimous. Thank you. And that brings us to item 13.1. So Councillor Beddoes, we'll ask that you, thank you for stepping in to vote on receipt of those items, and we will, again,
Let us know the result.
keep us posted on the federal election.
Ditto. More of the same. Yeah, more of the same. Doesn't change much.
And just while Councillor Beddoes is exiting, I will also confirm that Councillor Beddoes has recused himself from all debate and discussion, reports, and so forth regarding this item. It has been stated in other forms that he has been participating. He clearly has not been, and he has also sought independent legal advice at his own expense to make that confirmation. It confirms there is a benefit potentially, so that is why he continues to leave the room. So for those that may be concerned about that, conflict of interest is a very serious allegation, and it is one that we treat that we take significantly, but he has in fact recused himself throughout. Okay, so now we're on to item 13.1, which is the alternate approval process results from the John Phillips Memorial Park. Before I turn to staff to walk us through this report, I'm just going to make a few comments about this. In terms of why, there's some very valid concerns raised by members of our community, including tonight, on why it seems the information is not coming out. This is not a district-led process or project, per se. We are the landholder in this regard. However, we received a proposal from the Souk Lions Club. In some ways, it's similar to developers or other community groups that have an idea that they want to progress, and they bring it forward. We are mainly the keeper of the process. So we were required under the Local Government Act to seek the alternative approval process because it's a lease over parkland. This is different from, say, the library, which is also a long-term lease, but did not require us to follow this process. It's district-owned land, but it's not zoned parkland. So that is the difference between the two parcels. The library, while some believe that this council held up the construction of that project, we in fact did not. When it came forward to council, after years of the library finding a location, one time John Phillips was a desired location by some members of a previous council, it had several steps it needed to go through. So we needed to consider zoning. We needed to look at the development permit. We needed to look at surveying and servicing of the site, subdivision, a lease, all of which took upwards, I think, of about 2 years to complete, as well as some funding arrangement that this council supported. So we actually moved it as quickly as we could, though some would say we slowed it down, because of the various steps the library needed to go through until it could actually receive a building permit and begin construction. So in that case, we today are here at the start of a process. There is no lease signed as of yet. There is no development permit in place. We also need to consider zoning. In this case, this is parkland, and it's a park that is zoned to be an active park. So back in 2005 or so, when the district acquired or gained these lands, a community group was formed and determined what we would want to see, or what would the community want to see on this particular land. And the council of the day chose to zone it as an active park in keeping with a number of proposed uses. Things like a bike skills park, a horseshoe green, a dog run, a putting green, a gazebo for weddings, and a community amenity building along with trails and the like. Over the years, numerous groups have come forward to try to progress some of those plans. In some cases, council gave approval and then changed their minds. I was looking through old meeting minutes for a bike park, for example, where council unanimously agreed to fund that, also entered into funding and so forth, but then the mayor decided to reconsider the item. In that case, it was a license of occupy. There was no alternative approval process there. because it was a license to occupy. However, that was repealed, and then Sea Park brought forward an alternative location, which now continues to be home to that bike park to this day. Similarly, the Horseshoe Pitch is relocated and is now found on Souk River Park lands. Council did not, or the district did not own those lands at that time, so after they were acquired in somewhere around 2008 to 2010, the group felt that that would be a better location given the recreational activities occurring in that particular area. Disc golf has been another item that has come forward. The dog park, as we know it, has been landed in the Ponds Park corridor by this particular council. And so various pieces, so that's why our current Parks and Trail Master Plan state that another form of community consultation would be needed, and we agree with that and we support that because these type of amenities have found permanent homes elsewhere in the community. This park kind of came more on the radar as an active park in maybe 2007, 8, 9, somewhere in there when the Subaru Triathlon was hosted out of Souk. This was the finish line for the triathlon series. There were cars in the park, and this is where the athletes would finish their run. At that time, the mayor also wanted to bring, not me, I wasn't the mayor then, the Ironman to Souk, and did a lot to try to attract the Ironman series, and that the park could be used for more athletic type of activities. However, the Subaru Triathlon series moved on to another community, and again, the park was quiet. Somewhere around 2015 or 16-ish, I think, trail system was added, the trails that we know it now, and it was a response to what the community was looking for. The area was boggy and a bit muddy. There was a need to get more active participation in the park, because sadly, sometimes on weekends, a few were ATVing and using dirt bikes and chewing up the park, much to the disappointment of neighboring neighbors. The Souk Music Festival came along a few years ago, and they worked with the former owners of Speed Source to host and run the concert as we know it that used to be in August. With much success. I know that not everyone likes the music from the music festival, but sadly not everyone likes the music from the Philharmonic Fling, as I receive calls about that as well. So I guess that music is subjective, but there was, again, it was a successful event that drew more folks in the park. We've done movies in the park. We've learned from our own district experience that having movies at McGregor is a challenge. It gets cold, there's a lack of parking, there's only one washroom, and the wind tends to move the screen a lot, which makes viewing of the movie in the park at night a bit of a challenge. And so we moved the movie in the park to John Phillips a few years ago, much to the delight of many young people who, sort of our youth, who haven't found activities for them. And, you know, just for the time of night, it was a very popular event. We'll talk about the screen display another time. However, movies in the park was something that folks really enjoyed and would say they would like more of. Our community groups, like the Lions Club, are the ones that have been on the ground going all the way back to the Subaru Triathlon series when they were there providing sustenance to the athletes as they finished. Some may ask, why are they not all on social media doing this, that, or the rest? Well, Lions, as I know them, are boots on the ground and helping hands. They're not often keyboard warriors on every social media feed that goes out. It's a challenge. Perhaps some are, but often they are helping hands in our community. Yes, they have approached us about other municipal lands. What about the land next to us on the other side of the fire department and on the corner of Otter Point? Maybe that would be a good setting. Well, we're a growing municipality, and as we grow, our problems grow with us. Wildfire grows with us. Traffic, horrific traffic accidents grow with us. and therefore our emergency services also need a place to practice, and we need a place to meet the growing needs of our emergency response. We know that our ambulance location, our ambulance station is small for our community. We know that our RCMP detachment is also small for our growing community, and our fire hall will likely be small for our community in the years to come. We need to plan. We know we are growing. I know that for some that is disappointing to hear, but we are a growing community. Even if we did not have any new developments, certainly families will continue to have families and will want to remain and be a part of our community in the years to come. There has been chatter from other elected that they did not foresee this as a use. Well, then why, when they were elected, did they not change the zoning? This still remains an active park zone. They had all the ability through different reiterations of the zoning bylaw to change the zoning of this park to a passive park. They did not. For what reason, I don't know. I supported the bike park. I also supported some of the other amenities, including the trail, the Subaru, and other things, because I felt this is where the people are living. This is where we have all this density here. So when I hear things like, why not over there, here? Well, do we buy a forested area, cut it down, and have everyone drive to it? So we're still at a point where we are receiving information and we still need to make a decision. I just wanted to give some context to how we got here today. The Lions approached us with a proposal. We know we need an emergency operations center. The heat dome this summer was really hard for many of our residents in our community. They would phone and say, can you please open C Park, the arena, so we can get in and cool down? Could you get someone to open the community hall so we could cool down? Neither of those buildings are air conditioned. C Park actually had to close the pool because the pool deck got so hot it was dangerous to walk on, and that's a swimming pool in an air conditioned building. The only part of C Park where there was some respite was the vaccination clinic, because it's a new addition to meet modern standards at this time. Everyone else I unfortunately sent to the grocery store, to the freezer section, because I couldn't think of another place where they could possibly find a place to cool down. The threat of earthquake still remains with us. The threat of wildfire continues to remain with us and will for years to come. And we've also had tsunami alerts in years past, which saw many residents coming up this way hoping to access this particular building in the event of a really unfortunate time. But this is an emergency operations hub. This is where our crews are dispatched out of, information is exchanged. It's not really a place where folks to go, which is why we rely on places like the high school, EMCS, Journey Middle School at Kulpoye, and we have those partnerships with the school district. Of course, it's all contingent on whether or not the bridge is in place or not. So we are trying to think ahead about everyone that's coming into the community. In 2014, we brought a referendum question, or Council of the Day brought a referendum question, something like, should we continue to advance the need for community buildings because we are growing? The community hall is a gem in our community. However, it is busy, and the groups, anyone needing space or the ability to access the space is often turned away because they are at capacity. The Lions know this, the Masons, Rotary, the Lone Cupboard, the food bank has food stored everywhere. It's a busy, busy place. And the Lions know this as volunteers, which is why they're trying to problem solve with us, and they came forward with a proposal for us to consider. So we also want to get out in front of the community. But many of us here were only duly vaxxed this August with our second vaccination. So we were hesitant, not because we're scared to get out. We were concerned about the impacts of COVID on our own health and those that we cared about. So only now, as you know, through coffee chats or time at the museum, the night market, and so forth, council can now be out and field questions. However, we are growing, as I've said, and the needs to address the growth continue. Council, as you know, this one and previous have supported a lot of more housing build-out through our community, and that is leaving inequity we also need community amenities to grow with us. So that is why we have entertained this proposal to this point. You could say, oh, why don't you survey us? We do, and it's great when 200 and 300 some residents take the time to reply. Budget time, our staff send out 100 or so, last year 100 to, posted page return envelopes, and it was wonderful that 2 residents took the time to fill that in. And on it goes. So this is at least one way for us to say, look, here is something, can you please let us know what we think? And we're really glad that you did. We're glad that you took the time. I applaud Mr. Wallace for sharing his concern with us and for taking the time to be out in the community as well and to get those feedback. So we appreciate all of that, because sometimes you launch a survey and 3 people reply. It's like, are you listening? This is really important. This is local government. This is your budget, your taxes, and so forth. And even pre-COVID, during budget, it was wonderful for the 4 people that attended that day. I know that local government isn't necessarily the draw. The polls say it with only 40% responding. We always hope that it'll be more. Candidates like myself and others do more to get a greater response, and yet it's still the 40%. And so here we are. So we're not, so for those, I appreciate those that took the time to be with us today. And we'll get more, and I'd like to hear more from members of my council, but I just wanted to express what was certainly on my mind. We have no desire to rush something through. We want to hear from you. We're losing the tools that we can. And I also appreciate the Lions for recognizing a valuable and a community, a gap in our community, and they're trying to fill it. Others from the Souk Region Community Health Initiative are also addressing gaps around mental health and the opioid crisis, gaps around physician and the need for folks to access more healthcare services and the like. So many of us are on the ground doing this and addressing the gaps, because we feel there are people falling behind in our community, and for many of us, that's not acceptable. So I am wandering way off the script here, but I just, obviously, it's been a while since I've engaged with the public. We miss all of you, and I look forward to your returning into council. And I thank everyone that has been on both sides of this for all of your comments, all of your written words, everything that you've brought forward. But the accusations of Councillor Beddoes being in conflict are false. The accusation that staff and council are trying to mislead or lie or swindle the public are false. We are doing our best to actually build community and to build equity and an inclusive environment. Many will say the community hall is fine. Well, my father is currently in a wheelchair, and pushing him up the stairs through a crowd over bumpy parking or lack of parking is not accessible. There was no way I could get him to the advanced poll in that scenario. And so we needed a different alternative. And our district is guilty of that as well. I mean, our own, I was just going to say over at Ed McGregor, when folks say that that park would be more than suitable, it is one accessible parking stall right next to the stairs. So that, to me, does not make it an accessible park for all, and nor does it have ample parking for events, as those who have called me and to complain about the Philharmonic Fling would probably say, the impact of that last event a month ago and the impact on them. So I'll leave it at that. I am going to now turn it to staff just to talk more about the process. Our staff have been the keepers of the process up until this point, and that's where we have been. And I will reiterate to those listening and watching, we have not made a decision, and the Lions will also need to be informed into what does the development approval process look like. We just rejected a development permit with a variance for good reason. There is a process around development permit. The library went through it recently. They were upset with some of the things that we asked for, and ultimately they agreed to deliver what we asked. Sea Park also, through the expansion there, needed a development permit. and a process. And when some of the commissions said, well, maybe we'll do that, it's like, no, you have to do it. It's not a nice to have, you must do it. That's part of the approval, and so they're finding the funds. And same with the multi-sport lacrosse box that's going into Sun River. Development permit is required. We're working with the CRD, and yes, you must do these things. These are not a nice to have, these are what you must do. They are a requirement here, and for that, we are firm. So on that, I will turn it over to staff, and thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Your Worship. On July 12th, Council directed staff to carry out an alternative approval process to obtain elector approval to proceed with the long-term lease for a portion of John Phillips Memorial Park. The alternative approval process ran from August 12th until September 15th at 4 p.m. During that time, elector response forms were available for download from the district's website or in print at the district office. Additionally, requests to provide 1,100 printed copies of the elector response forms were made and provided within 24 hours of receiving those requests. Approval of the electors has been obtained if the number of valid elector response forms received by the end of the AAP is less than 10% of the number of electors within the district of Souk, which Council received a report and determined to be 11,238. As of the deadline, the district received a total of 1,026 valid response forms, and there is a certification of the results attached to my report. There were some rejected ballots for various reasons. Most of those were received from individuals who did not live within the district of Souk or own property within the district of Souk, and others were rejected for reasons of ineligibility. So in total, the number of valid responses received represents 9.13% of eligible voters, which by legislation means that electoral approval has been achieved for Bylaw 820, allowing for the disposition of interest in parkland through a lease. Council has options moving forward. They can direct staff to proceed with the lease and notice of disposition. Council can direct staff to carry out an assent vote. That does not need to be done by the December 4th deadline, as noted in the report. We have received a legal opinion that 80-day timeline only applies if the elector assent had not been received through the alternative approval process, or Council may determine to abandon the project. Just of note, the estimated cost of an assent vote is approximately $15,000. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, questions from members of council or comments? I feel that in this case, I spoke at length and didn't ask any questions when there was no notice on the floor, which I tend to make you all subscribe to, so I will then, as chair, allow you to comment as well. But also, if you have questions about the particular process or anything like that, please go ahead. Councillor St. Pierre.
I think I'd like to start with a few comments, because I think, as our mayor probably made it very clear, found this a difficult process, and I'd like to just get a few things out in the clear. The AAP process, as pointed out, is not a process that council has any place in. Once it's handed off, it's handed off. We're not meant to advocate for it. We're not meant to step forward and say whether we're in favor of the process or not. So allegations that we were trying to keep information back, I was pretty much told, you should stay out of it. This is not your place. This is for the public to decide. And information was put out there to the point that this thing came to 9.1%, that the community is galvanized, that we've had a huge amount of input. This is all wonderful, and this is what's supposed to happen, and it's amazing to happen in the local government. But this is not because the the process used was flawed. It's not because it was trickery. This is the process we're allowed to use. There's not that many processes that we can use. We use the tools that we have available. The timing was based on when we received the proposal from the Lions. And some people said, too fast. They've been waiting 15 years and working pretty much steadily that whole time. This wasn't too fast for them. I'd like to also point out that although the park has been staying as a passive park for a long time, that's not what the intent of the park was. And I would put forward, as a very strong climate advocate, that's not what the future needs. People are talking about biodiversity, what used to be a golf course. Meanwhile, we've got houses all around and a deep need for walkable amenities. This is not about reducing biodiversity. This is a necessity for our future. And I wouldn't say that during the process because I was sure I couldn't and I wasn't supposed to. But that might have changed things if council had come on side. I'd like to point out that there's not that many places that we can put that kind of amenity. Yes, we could find maybe one or two other places, but they would be inferior and would not serve the community as well. We have a mandate from 2006, which is not powerful. I really appreciate the letter from Margaret Critchlow, who suggests that we need more community input. The process as it stands allows for much more community input. This is not the end of community input. Now that the community is galvanized, let's get that input. Let's find out. Are we going to put in permeable pavers if we decide to go ahead? Are we going to look for a step 4, a step 5 building if we decide to go ahead? Are we going to look for the best possibilities if we decide to go ahead? This is all possible. I've been to other parks that had water features. I've been to other parks that had buildings nearby. I've been to parks that were much better utilized than John Phillips. This park could be so much more. And it's up to the community, but it's up to this council. Are we simply going to say, oh, well, a bunch of people have decided, and honestly, with a lot of information that wasn't necessarily accurate, that they don't like it? Well, we have a mandate of sorts. I'll admit it's not a very strong mandate, but now we've got a tough decision ahead of us. But I'd like the community to appreciate this council does its very best for the future of the community. And it's not because we're misguided, although sometimes we make bad calls, and it's not because we're not doing our very best. And allegations of corruption are not appreciated. And I think that's my comment at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Other councillors?
So, yeah, I think the event that we've just held this past weekend was very well received by everyone who showed up. And having some additional amenities in the park will allow us to have more events such as that. I heard a comment that we are here to provide social good for the community, and I would argue that events such as the one that we held last weekend are providing social good for the community, bringing people together. The existing community hall I have fond memories of that place for my entire life. I've gone to events there since I was a little kid, and it's a great facility, but the intent is not to replace that, but to add to it, to add something different. And so the community hall is sort of landlocked. There's no place to park. It's kind of an awkward place to get in and out of. And as a user of a wheelchair myself, it's not the best, most accessible building. And I think we need to grow up as a community and have some more modern facilities. And this particular idea of having amenities in this wide open park will allow us to have a community building that can host events that actually has a backyard for the community to play in as well as part of that facility. And I keep hearing people say that all the things that happen in the park now won't be able to happen anymore, which is not true at all. We're taking a small piece of the park, adding some amenities to it. It will not have any impact whatsoever on the activities that take place in the park now. So that's about all I have to say, and we'll see what happens next.
Councillor Bateman?
Okay, yeah, I have some questions to staff and then some comments. Just looking at the most substantial of the feedback that we received through the Souk on Fire taxpayers. Reading from their letter, there was the question there were constant questions about the AAP process and why the town did so little to make residents aware of the proposal. Could you reiterate for us what the town did in fact do?
Certainly, through your worship, to Councillor Bateman. Under the legislation, all that the district was required to do was undertake 2 notices in the local newspaper advertising the opening date and closing date of the AAP process. Those were legislated, so of course those were done. But early on in the process, soon after council provided direction to undertake the process, I believe, 9-page document was prepared by our communications coordinator and put that out. It was on our website along with all of the information, sample forms. They were all available for download. So the staff definitely undertook a greater undertaking to get information out to the public than was ultimately required. I can also speak, I know that our communications coordinator spent a lunch hour, walk home, walk to work in the park talking to individuals and getting that information out to them. So there was certainly a lot of information sharing that was undertaken by staff.
Okay, thank you. Just continuing here, why was the public not informed when the town first started meeting with the Lions about this proposal?
Your Worship, to Councillor Bateman, we have had discussions with Lions, land issues. They were in camera. The AAP process was an opportunity for us to get this into the public realm.
Okay. So that's key about the in-cameras, because the next question would state, why have we not disclosed the price that the district will pay for the Lions land on Murray Road? On the grounds that in-camera deals with staff, land, disposition, and what's the third category? Legal. Legal. There we go. All right. The need for paper forms, were emailed forms possible?
Not within the time frame that we had to work within. As you may remember, the July 12th report that Council received contained the time frame to conduct the AAP process. And unfortunately, it's not just the AAP process that needed to be taken into consideration. We also had to account for the possibility of Council to hold an assent vote following the September 15th AAP deadline, because that must be held within 80 days, which takes us up to December 4th. So we had a very tight timeline to work within, given Christmas holidays, and, I don't think there's ever a perfect time to hold these things, recognizing that, there was an overlap through summer vacation and back to school, but we also had to take into account on the other end that we didn't want to be holding our assent vote during the middle of Christmas vacation as well. So we had to accommodate for that.
Okay, thank you. And finally, in terms of showing the public greater environmental studies and building details regarding this project, what was our rationale on that?
The rationale was, and I'm going to take the liberty to speak with on behalf of the Lions. I'm not sure if Mr. Willis is still on the line or not, but my understanding is that the Lions did not want to spend significant money on design work on a project that still had a number of milestones to reach before it had any hope of going forward. So to your earlier question, again, my understanding is the proceeds from the sale of the Murray Road property will be the funds that the Lions use for their design work.
Okay. All right, so I'll shift to comments here, and first to thank the Mayor and Councillor St. Pierre and Councillor Lajeunesse for their very clear comments and directions here. I think just to address the matter of the utilization of the alternative approval process itself, this is a process the province set up in 2003 when it created the community charter. It has been used by communities all around the province many, many times. It has been used at least 4 times in the last decade in Souk, as far as I'm aware. That included the purchase of the golf course by the CRD and the borrowing permission under our watch to fund, I think it's 2.2 million, to borrow 2.2 million to fund our share of the wastewater treatment plant. So there's no, is that not true? Okay.
Your Worship, we've had 3 readings of a borrowing bylaw for the sewer upgrade. We haven't went through the process to secure those funds at this point.
Okay. All right, thank you. Learning all the time. It is such a rich world of local governance and municipal process. And I want to go back to that word that the mayor used earlier, process. And you know, I was talking in the park on Saturday to a member of the 2006 John Phillips Memorial Park Committee, and she noted that that committee went through a very deep and thorough public process to identify that the will of the people back then was for an active civic park, and the understanding that the old golf course was in the northern heart of our town center, and it needed, and so they went ahead with their recommendations, and which is all available for you to read online. So we went to this AAP process. You know, I've heard here that, you know, I've read that we're an unprincipled council, that we're a corrupt council, that we are. That, in fact, in the park on Saturday, I was approached by 2 gentlemen who flat out stated, and let me make sure I've got my language straight here, that it was a conspiracy. We were in league with the Lions, a setup job, sneaky and underhanded, a done deal. And this is such, you know, it's kind of amazing after our work over these 3 years to be accused of this kind of behavior. And it stems from fear and lack of knowledge and a desire to retain the values of our central park. And it's wonderful that we've had, that the AAP was known enough in the community that it inspired and galvanized a group, as it happened back in 2011 when our former Mayor Milne organized to defeat an AAP process that was involving the long-term contract for the wastewater treatment plant. And here again, we've had a group of people come forward, do their work. The district supplied over 1,000 printed forms for them to distribute throughout the community, and they've managed to get 3%, just short, 60 or 70 short of the total. So with that in mind, I would certainly hope that we will receive this result for information and try to find some sort of town hall or community process to continue the conversation to, yeah, so I think that's about it. I just take some deep offense at this nature of us as a corrupt council. You know, hearing online from former elected officials saying shame on them. It's, yeah, it's politics, I guess. Eh? And I just want to say, apart from the Drivers Lewis matter in this council back in 2019, a continuation of 2018, this has been the liveliest and most engaged I've seen the community in office. So, viva democracy, and it's a process that continues. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bateman. I just want to add a little bit more on some of the pieces. So the Murray Road Park, some may remember that the Lions were approached by Habitat for Humanity, who expressed an interest in purchasing that park, and developing it into townhomes, I believe. And it never really came as an application towards council, but they did hold community meetings. And there was significant community pushback. Our town center plan designates that parcel as a park. Our official community plan has it also as a park, even though it was privately held. So there were some of the many reasons why that project did not go ahead. There's also the case where, and why do we want, we as a district wish to acquire this? Well, we are growing, as I mentioned. The town center will also be growing. We will be seeing density there. And while some refer to the Marine Boardwalk as adequate green space, there is also a need for other space for respite, even from employees that are working that might want a place to have lunch, say. We do have a need to find more places for EV chargers and folks to fast charge a vehicle. So that may be a potential fit. And where's our country market going to relocate, among some others? For the district to have that parcel, it gives options to the district. It gives us a card as the town center develops. It makes us a player as the town center develops. So it gives us something as we see more interest in our town center come forward. And yes, there is tremendous interest in the development of the town center and how that will shape over time. What would we do with it? Well, that's again a question that we will ask you when and if that time comes. In terms of this location and why this area of John Phillips, Wadham's Way is a connector now in our community. It will also be future home to a transit hub. In fact, if the pandemic, if we didn't know the words COVID-19 and time were different, the Transit Commission had already allocated capital funds to make transit stop improvements in Wadham's Way. And they were scheduled to do that, I believe, in 2020. However, COVID has kind of ripped apart the transit system, as anyone would know, and also the capital reserves that the Commission still has. The local area plan for Souk, though, is a new document, and it's a very valid plan. And this is going to guide transit expansion both within our community, so in and around Souk, as well as in and out of Souk. And that area is where transit wants to have the community buses come in, and then so folks can get in and around Souk, into Souk. And it makes sense because that's where our new library, which is under construction, as everyone knows, is going to be. The library will also have meeting space and programming to meet the growing needs of our community, but it will not have a commercial kitchen. Other elements on that parcel that the district now holds is an elders complex. We progressed and support and continue to support the development of an elders complex on that land. So a seniors drop-in center, perhaps a place for Meals on Wheels, youth activities in the evening, other programming, as well as accessible living above. And that is another advocacy item for us. It continues to be valid. There is a need for elders in our community to have space to gather safely. I was fortunate to meet our community paramedic who was very keen to do group activities. He's like, where can I find the seniors so I can do X, Y, or Z? And it's like, well, they're all in their homes throughout our community. We don't have a place for seniors to come together at this moment. So that, again, is another use there. So part of, so you can see we would have the library, an elders complex, hopefully one day a primary care home where all of our medical services could be co-located in one location. Yes, Evergreen Mall has provided a temporary home for that, but it's inadequate. Our x-ray facility is still not located there. There is a need for things like group physio, more services for prenatal and postnatal care, and supports for mental health for young people as well as for our elders. And so there is a significant, outstanding need in the realm of mental health and health, as well as a public plaza. In terms of what the Lions want to accomplish, what they shared with us is we know there's an ongoing need for daycare, affordable care in our community. Right now, daycare continues to be challenging to find, and parents are driving all over Souk to get their children into the care that they need. And like I said, driving all over Souk to find that care. We drive past my son's school to take my child to the end of Grant Road. It's the only spot available. And there's many in the same situation. Not all women are able to fully work full-time and realize their potential because they need to be with their family. And for folks to say, well, stop having children then, you know, let's try to move beyond that. And I'm not even going to defend that or even respond really to that. I shouldn't even have raised it. The other elements the Lions are proposing, they have 3 very busy service clubs growing in numbers, and places like Rotary continues to have a look for meeting space. They had been meeting in the space upstairs above Village Foods, and like I said, upstairs above Village Foods, so not accessible either. And there's other groups that are looking for a place to launch out of with a commercial kitchen and others. There's discussion on things like anniversary, what are the special events, memorial services, weddings, and folks will say, well, book up the Prestige. The Prestige is a busy place. Weddings, if you want to book for next year, you better start calling up now. It's a popular destination. Souk Harbor House, as it's being renovated, will be another popular destination. And so it depends on the type of wedding that you wish to hold. Some that are looking for something smaller, they often then leave our community to find the adequate space because there just simply isn't a lot of space available. And what about some of the other pop-up activities that folks are looking for? So this is what's coming from a very strong volunteer group in our community. And these are some of the items that they have put forward. So again, it's a proposal and idea, and one that now we are, okay, community, what do you think? We've done that through the AAP process, and then now it's the case where this would now enter into the development approval process. So should council, I mean, the recommendation here in terms of, you know, council wanting to bring this, well, all the staff have put forward at this point is to receive for information, because that's what we're doing. In some ways, this is like a development permit or a development process unto its own, like a rezoning. Staff look at the policies and the bylaws and the zoning. They come forward giving their technical expertise. Council, what do you think? Will you give this first and second reading? We say, okay, based on your technical guidance here, based on the policy and bylaws, let's do that. Let's give it first and second, and let's send it out to the public via a public hearing. Public, what do you say about this? And then council then takes that into consideration. That public hearing is like the last component, the final component that council uses to make decisions. We have the staff report, and then we hear from the public, and then we add our own lens on this and decide whether or not we support that rezoning or we don't, based on the information that we hear. So in some cases, this is not a rezoning because the park, this type of use is accepted under the current zoning, but this is a way for us to get what the community has to say about this, and we've received a lot of pieces about this. So that's kind of where we're at now. In some cases, in terms of more public conversation here, so this is where options are moving forward here. So council, or pardon me, staff have listed out a few. 3 options, so one being council may direct staff to proceed with the required notice of disposition, and negotiating the terms of the lease to include a condition that the lease will terminate if the parties don't settle upon an approved design within a certain period of time. The proposed uses are permitted under the current zoning, and only a development permit application will become before council. So this is the part that's important. Approved design, meaning a design accepted by council through a development permit application, which is a public process. That is where we will also hear from the public and get more input onto that. Number 2, we could head to an assent vote, or 3, we may abandon the project. So where I'm at right now is because we are moving along and we are seeing more of our community vaccinated. Thank you, everyone who has gone to get a vaccine, because we're not able to get into phase 4 and fully reopen and invite all of you back into chambers until we accomplish that. I think it would be helpful if we sort of accepted this, did the first part, did the recommendation, I'm thinking aloud here, and then also that council directs staff to come back with a report on, that sort of lists out what is the next steps. What is a development permit approval process? What does the lease look like? And the Lions may choose, you've seen how we've not approved every development, and this is where sometimes some people take their drawings with them and they don't want to come back. The Lions may choose not to proceed. They might find the development permit. We have to talk with them. There's a repairing area. What do those setbacks look like? How will they use? The zoning, what are parking requirements, all of those pieces. What does step code look like? And how does building for the future look like? Can you put in mass timber? All of those pieces into the design. There's a lot of unknowns. So what would that look like? And secondly, I think it would be helpful to have a community meeting about this, so that we can have a bit more informal conversation. Perhaps the Lions could set up a booth. They could be there to share some of their information. We can talk more freely about what zoning looks like and development permit, just like it's like an open house on this item. I don't want to say a special meeting, because then we're sort of confined with the rules of order, and you must register, you must speak, and you can't speak. You know, this is a community meeting, or an open house on this item would allow for that more one-on-one, that more engaging, you know, answer this and that. Not everyone wants to speak on Teams, not everyone even wants to speak at the podium, and not everyone is writing. I see a lot of people write on social media, but then why won't they write to us here where it matters? Because I can't take all the bits and pieces on social media, and I'm not going to dive into a secret or private or closed group and try to pull all that out and make sense of it, and then say, hey, I read it on Facebook in this group that so-and-so said X. Like, I can't make a decision that way. I need to have real concrete submissions. And so, you know, but maybe those folks would be more comfortable coming in and chatting with us one-on-one, like they have been at the night market, at coffee chats and so forth, and we can sort of clarify more of what the concern is, and then how together can we build together for the future in a way that that meets everyone's needs. And I understand that some people will hate it forever, and you're totally entitled to that. Or we may not be able to address your concerns, and I completely understand and respect that as well. But it will allow us the opportunity to engage further and have good conversation, and hopefully be able to do that as we allow the public to enter and come back in. Does that make sense? That's a really long thing to say.
Okay, it's just more as a clarification question. So what I'm hearing is that we should receive for information. Would this require an additional motion to have some sort of a community event? Or is it simply receive for information, or is it two separate motions?
Well, there's sort of two. So staff are listening to me, as they always do kindly, and they're able to put things into very succinct language. So the first part is what is in the report, and the second one would be what has been added here. So why don't we put these forward? Can they be grouped together? Well, we'll keep them separate. Well, we'll keep them separate. It's cleaner. Okay, so the first one is that this report pertaining to the certification of results regarding the alternative approval process conducted to seek approval of the electors to lease a portion of John Phillis Memorial Park to the Sauk Lions be received for information. Moved by Councillor St. Pierre and seconded by Councillor Lajeunesse. We're receiving that for information. Okay? All those in favor of receipt? And that's unanimous. Thank you. The next part here is that council directs staff to bring back a report containing lease details, the development permit process, and options for further engagement.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Bateman and seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. So what I see in there is options for further engagement. This where staff will say, okay, here within local government are some things that you want to do and what you can consider, and we also need to find an appropriate venue. Councillor St. Pierre.
Would this offer the public an opportunity to see those lease details and then comment on them?
Yeah, I think that will be in the report.
That would be lovely.
Yes. Yes.
And I'm hoping that perhaps in preparation for the event that we can actually have more information put out. One of my concerns personally is that in terms of the OCP, in terms of direction of council to date, we've been looking at smart growth, we've been looking at densification in appropriate areas, we've been looking at trails, pedestrian walkways, active transportation. Mr. Carter's done amazing work with our transportation master plan, trying to get that active transportation. I believe this is a key piece of all of that, but I don't necessarily think that the public has realized that this could be a key piece of having the amenities for an active transportation, smart growth type community. And I feel like many people might be on board if they understood the bigger picture.
Well, I think, yeah.
I'd like that sort of communication to happen as well, because otherwise we're potentially just looking at another iteration of the AAP.
Yeah, no.
This hasn't been that pleasant.
No, that's very helpful, and I think we can get that within that particular report. I mean, part of it is, when I hear, okay, you're just turning John Phillips into a series of parking lots, I think this is where clarity around those developments would help. So yes, the Mulligans or Speed Source or, whatever that building is now is going to be developed. There's fencing in place right now because we're not allowed to walk on that side of the park. Well, the new property, as it's being developed, will allow for public access in and around the pond. So that's important to note, that we will have access to that part of the park. We don't have it right now. The Wadhams development on Church Road underway right now will also, yes, it's more residents, but also more green space for the public. We did not support it becoming strata only. We wanted public access to that portion of the park. So that's another one. The Knott's Brook development across the street also has park and public access. Now that land is idle, but the last development permit, as I recall, had Knott Brook with park and trails going through it so that folks could go from this park all the way through to that park and onwards, so they so choose. So while there's new residents there, they will also have a newly enhanced green space to enjoy as well. So it's the connectivity pieces throughout these parcels, I think, that would be very helpful. And that's where I think getting that information from adjacent development as it's unfolding would be very helpful.
I think it's been noted by a number of our community members that we don't actually have a comprehensive plan for John Phillips, and that's in the Trails Master Plan. So I was wondering if I'd ask staff when we might expect that work to start, and whether or not that can be integrated, or how that's going to look.
So that is not in the operations work plan in 2021. Our focus right now is design work for the plaza on Lot A. So whether that receives the funding and the priority that it needs for 2022, that'll depend, that'll decide whether it ends up in the 2022 work plan or not.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
So as the seconder of the second part of this, I just want to say I look forward to the staff report and an open house opportunity where we'll have further engagement from the many in the community who are in fact in support of this proposal. So we've not heard from that collective apart from on my blog. I had close to 200 likes of an informational item related to this project, and I've noted an online poll on Souk issues, I think it was, that had a substantial margin in favor. So it'd be good to see at this open house as well a table by Souk on Fire taxpayers to present again their side of the story. So thank you very much, Mayor, for directing us this way.
Okay, so I'm going to call the question then. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, if we could please, let's locate Councillor Beddoes.
Much change.
$600 million.
The service stayed exactly the same.
Okay, folks, so we're moving on to item 13.2, which is our return to council chambers. Ms. Mushada.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this has been ongoing as things keep changing with the guidelines for COVID regulations. But as of late, we have received some final information. The COVID Act that was authorizing virtual meetings will expire Tuesday, September 28th. So as of September 29th, we will not have the authorization to conduct virtual meetings unless council would like to direct an amendment to our council procedure bylaw, but it will take some time to get that in place. So we would have to draft that. I reviewed that information today and actually participated in a final survey group with the province today. They are looking at putting out another set of final guidelines next week once the order expires. So I would suggest that we wait for that. But, you know, I think we've seen over the last year and a half that there are pros and cons to virtual meetings, and I would just ask council to consider those and consider whether we want to continue with virtual participation. I have had a lot of people that are registering ask if they can attend in person. So, you know, we are directing them that. I think our first meeting after the 29th is October 4th. We have a budget meeting. So that meeting will be open to the public. If all staff and council members are present, we are under Stage 3 guidelines, which is a limit of 50 people in council chambers. So that would allow us approximately 35 members of the public to attend. That usually that won't exceed most meetings. I think it would have tonight, but you know, we can see how things go moving forward. With respect to masks, we have also received some direction from the province that workstations in council chambers can be considered exactly that, workstations where masks don't have to be worn. But when the public does come into council chambers on October 4th, they will have to wear masks in the public viewing area. I think that's it. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Councillor St. Pierre?
I just want to clarify. So as of September 28th, we will no longer have any virtual participation. Is that correct?
That is correct. Council is not permitted to give any readings to an amendment bylaw until September 29th, after the new legislation comes into place. And the process for amending our council procedure bylaw will be to give it 3 readings, advertise it for 2 weeks, and because of the timing, it would likely be November before we would get that back to council for adoption. But again, I think we'd like to take our time with the amendments that, if council directs, should there be any, because they're recommending that policies, scripts, and a whole bunch of things also be adopted along with any amendments to the bylaw.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for this. And then just for members of the viewing public, we are an essential service, so the vaccine passport will not be a requirement. However, the mask will be a requirement, and we have hand sanitizer waiting for you. I had another question. It was a good one. So on that, it'll come to me. And so this now is that the report regarding public return to council chambers be received for information. And that's moved by Councillor Bateman and seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. I remember my question. With the YouTube and webcasting, do we have a sense of how many viewers viewed the meeting? Could someone share that with me
Yes,
for
we-
John
We
Phillips?
do, Your Worship. Yeah, we've been tracking it approximately every half hour this evening. At 7:15, there were 8 viewers, 7:45, there were 7 viewers, 8:10, 7, 8:35, 6, 8:48, 5, 9:30, there were 10 viewers, and at 10 o'clock, there were 7 viewers.
So at most, on this item, we had 10 members of the public viewing the YouTube channel.
Correct.
Yeah, so just on that, while I recognize that it may be convenient to just join a meeting digitally, we're told we're the closest to the people for good reason. I miss the people being in chambers here. Talking to a screen where I can't even fully see somebody's face, it's just odd form of communication. And then there's all sorts of challenges that come up. You forget to charge, you need to reboot, you can't log in, it doesn't work, the power goes out, your server goes out, YouTube and Microsoft don't like each other, Apple throws a fit. Like, there's all of that caused technology. The cat jumps on, the dog knocks things over. There's all of that noise in the background, and then it's clunky because only one person can speak. I hope that as we consider this, that we can have the public return to us. I find it odd speaking to a camera and I have no audience feedback. Maybe that's me, I don't think so, but just look forward to a return. So, but yeah, 10 folks, thank you for viewing the 10. Okay. All right, I'll call the question on this motion, please. All those in favor, please. And that's unanimous, thank you. Some more to come with this. Next one, 13.3, Climate Action Committee recommendations. So there's a recommendation here along with the report. Is there anything you would like to add to this before we get to the motion, Councillor Bateman?
Yeah, sure. I'll try to keep this short because it's well stated in the document here, but I'll just note that the Climate Action Committee's Education and Engagement Working Group did have been working with Denise Withers for about 5 months now, and our consultant, and she has been developing a master story plan that will be utilized. You know, I really should read from my notes as opposed to winging it, because I have no skills at that. I don't know how you and Councillor St. Pierre and La Jeunesse and anyway, it's been a great process. She has now completed her deliverables as of today, and we would now like to secure her services further with tonight's motion. We've had a lot of great support from staff, and when I say we, the Education Committee of Beth Lang, Chandel Holden, and myself, incredible support from Christina Moog and Sue Welke. Their time is necessarily limited, of course, and we want to continue working with this very talented contractor as we move forward. And as she states in her, as you'll see in the agenda, what's planned next. So we're seeking 25 hours for $37.50. There is still $8,914 in the Carbon Tax Reserve Fund. We have also noted in our motion that we would accept money from another source, and that might be council contingency.
Okay, so the motion here is the committee recommendation that council retain Denise Withers as a consultant to the Climate Action Committee's Education and Engagement Working Group for an additional 25 hours, and that her fee of $3,750 for this additional time be drawn from the district's carbon tax rebate reserve fund. Maybe I'll just stop it. Moved by Councillor La Jeunesse, seconded by Councillor Beddoes. Any discussion? I think this is a very important piece here in terms of delivering the message out to the community. Councillor Beddoes?
Yeah, I guess if we can spend $200,000 on an OCP and climate emergency, it's here. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. I don't see a problem with spending another $3,700 to get this right, so I'm okay with it.
Great. Call the question. All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, next up is 14.1. We're entering our bylaw section. Bylaws, everyone. I get another 10 callers on. So 14.1, permissive tax exemption amendment bylaw. So this comes before us every year. And there's the report. The recommendation is that council give first, second, and third reading to bylaw number 825-792-01, permissive tax exemption amendment bylaw 2021. Moved by Councillor St. Pierre, seconded by Councillor Bateman. Any discussion, questions, items, straightforward report?
Yeah, I just have a quick question, and that
Sure.
relates to the Hope Center, which is no longer going to be on the list of the permissive tax eligibility because of its being sold. But so through you to Ms. Gray, can you?
I can answer that. As much as I'd love to tax the federal and provincial government, I don't feel we can, right? Like, we're not able to tax.
BC Housing.
We can't tax them.
Through your worship, well, they obviously I'll have to wait to confirm how they're going to file this with BC assessment, but I would presume that this would be eligible for an exemption, we would not tax them directly as far as sending them a property tax bill, but we deal with the province as well as the federal government on specific properties in Souk where we collect payment in lieu of taxes. So it's not specifically, I guess, property taxes like we normally collect from others. Due dates are different as far as when we actually receive the payments, but we do receive payment in lieu of taxes from, for example, the RCMP building, the lighthouse, and there's a few provincial properties in the district that we receive a small bit of property taxes funds from. In 2021, it was approximately $7,400 for the provincial portion of taxes we received, and then I believe it's $31,000 we receive from the federal government for their taxes. So it's different. So it's better.
Check.
It's better than, in one way, it could be better than a permissive exemption because we actually receive the funds, where with the permissive we would get nothing. So I don't know specifically. Obviously, this has changed hands, so I presume that they would apply, have an exemption under Code 14. But to be determined, obviously, we'll follow up with BC assessment on that.
So I was a bit wrong there, actually.
But you did.
I think it's a good way to upload something, right, is, here, what more can we send them? They send us stuff to pay all the time, so I'd like to send it the other way. Okay, all those in favor, please. And that's unanimous as well. The next up is 14.2, Affordable Housing Agreement Bylaw number 812 for 2038 Gatewood Road. So there is a report here from staff. Anything further for staff to add to the report?
No, just if there's any suggested changes by council, I'll just note that this has already been reviewed both by the applicant as well as our legal counsel, so any direction from council to make changes, we'll have to take it back to those parties first for further review.
Okay, any questions from staff? Anything to add, any questions? Okay. I see 1 and 2, so these are two separate motions? Corporate officer?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so the first one then is that council give first, second, and third reading to the bylaw cited as Affordable Housing Agreement 2038 Gatewood Road, bylaw number 812, 2021. Moved by Councillor Beddoes, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. Anything on the motion? See none?
No, that was an
Okay.
I was voting.
All in favor then? Yes. Opposed? That's unanimous. The next one is that council authorize the chief administrative officer and the corporate officer to execute the necessary documents and the registration of a notice of the housing agreement on the title of Strata Lot 18, Strata Plan VIS 7048, following the adoption of the bylaw. Moved by Councillor St. Pierre, seconded by Councillor Beddoes. Anything from anyone? See none, all in favor? And that's unanimous, thank you. .3 is the Officers and Delegation of Authority Amendment Bylaw. We have a report here. Anything further from staff?
No, it was just timely to do an amendment now that we have done our restructuring of the organization. It's just an update to job titles as well. We have worded the bylaw in a way that will minimize the need for future updates.
Thank you. Okay, recommendation, or the motion is that council give first, second, and third reading to the bylaw cited as Officer and Delegation of Authority Amendment Bylaw Number 821672-4, 2021. Moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. Anything on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you. New business 15.1 is a notice of motion from Councillor Logans, which we will bring to the next meeting because the mover of the motion is not here. So the next is 16.1, Enhanced Road Assessment Pilot in Souk Response Letter. I just had it here for information because it sort of jumped out. The minister responded, which I appreciate, and it's an advocacy item that we've been pushing. So I'm just looking for move receipt. Moved by Councillor St. Pierre and seconded by Councillor Bateman. And I think what we can do is just continue to share that this service is available in our community. Yes. I think that's the important piece, is getting folks accustomed to using it. Okay, all those in favor, please. And that's unanimous. The next one is a request from the Harmony Project. As you know, last year they held the drive-in movie night. It went very well from the sounds of it, and they would like to do it again. So they have this proposal here. I have looked into, they're looking for $3,000 in funding or sponsorship. Staff did advise me that we could use, I think we have around $2,000 in sponsorship, but we have about $60,000 remaining or so in council contingency. So perhaps an option here would be to just go to council contingency for this item. So, yeah, so a motion then that council directs staff to write a letter in support of the Harmony Project's drive-in movie and concert night, and that council provide $3,000 from council contingency towards this event.
I could have said it better myself.
I'm surprised I said it that well, actually.
Oh, my. It's the James Bond chair.
Yeah, they don't do that, which is why I sit like this, because, okay. So do we have a mover in Councillor Beddoes? Hey, point of order, can you please stop talking? We have a motion here. Yes, stop talking. I'm talking. So the motion is, it's been moved and seconded, so this is for Halloween night. So encourage, they're going to do Ghostbusters, the '84 original. So it's old school, it's good. It's a good movie. Yes, so encourage those who are not going to be handing out candy, attend and let us know how it goes. I have at least 400 children to prepare for coming to my home, and I don't want to miss out on it. So I won't be at this event, but I wish it the most success. Okay, all those in favor, please. And that's unanimous, thank you. I look forward to your costume. You could even decorate your car. Good, yes. And then another one is a leftover sort of from the summertime on extreme fire danger. Just when it got so crispy out and there was such a concern, this came from one of our residents here, so I just felt it deserved a bit of attention. And just as we continue to do the work that keeps our community safe, I think it's something that we are going to need to start to think about in the future when it's so tinder dry in terms of what other things do we need to do to keep our community safe. So it's just here for information. So motion to receive by Councillor Beddoes, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. Yes, go ahead and comment.
Yeah, I read the letter. I guess that my only concern is, you know, it's just sort of looking at chainsaws, but there's lawnmowers, there's leaf blowers, there's all sorts of stuff out there. So we do have to go tread lightly in how we do it. And I know for me, I use a lot of those things to clear the brush away, so when the fire does come, it doesn't get my house. So, but it certainly need to look at it. I agree. Okay.
Excellent. All those in favor, please? And that's unanimous. We're at item number 17, council verbal reports. Councillor St. Pierre shaking his head. Councillor Beddoes.
Oh yeah, my mic's still on, so that's good. I just that thing on the weekend, that event, and you know, Jennifer certainly did a bang-up job down there. Drove me nuts, but it's besides the point. But I was just so pleased that we were able to carry something off like that. A little trouble with the person doing the syrup on the pancakes, but she got the hang of it after a while. But I just thought that was what council should be doing, and I really enjoyed myself. So I just wanted to let people know, and I worked myself to the bone that day. But it was fun. I was up at 5 that day. So was Jennifer, though.
Other members of council? Councillor Lajeunesse.
Yeah, I would echo those sentiments and extend them also to the members of the Lions Club, the Rotary Club, all 3 branches of the Lions Club, and especially to Jennifer for all the work that she put in. It wouldn't have happened without her dedication. And it was an excellent event. And I spoke to one person who was not in favor of the Lions proposal, but everyone else I talked to said, yes, go ahead, do it, let's get it done. So, and I think there was a very strong desire to hold more events like that in the park, and that facility will allow us to do that. And it'll be less taxing for Jennifer because there'll be a facility there to use.
She has to do it every year now.
And maybe the stage won't have to have a blue tarp over it.
Councillor Bateman.
Yeah, I was on the pancake line myself, responsible for the distribution of juice boxes, which was a pretty important role, I thought, and just witnessing the mayor layering on the syrup, it was unbelievable, you know, sugar shock, but anyway, it was really a fabulous day, and particularly hanging out in the OCP tent with our consultants and getting to know those folks, and yeah, it was a really great day, and it was at the end of a UBCM week that was very rich and tons of content, and respect again to the past president of UBCM, who was on camera repeatedly running the resolution session, doing all kinds of fantastic work. We're very fortunate to have her.
Well, thank you. Again, thank you to all for the Celebrate Souk, all the volunteers and everyone that was involved, and all those that attended and made the event. Party isn't fun if there's nobody there. My instructions were to give out syrup with the pancakes. So I was handing out the syrup for the odd pancake. So
We served 400
400 pancakes.
people. Yeah.
400 people got 800 pancakes, give or take, and several liters of syrup to go with it. So
Probably about 600 sausages.
yes. So I really enjoyed it. It did come right at the end of UBCM week for me, so I'm finished now on the executive and will join the UBCM history archives going forward as there's a new executive coming into place. Really wish to thank this council in particular, as well as our staff, sir, for supporting me on that journey. In particular, it's all about local government. You know, I like filling potholes, despite what others say. We have a lot to do, and it's been a great opportunity to network with other peers, other innovators, leaders throughout BC, to build new connections, and for me, a lot of fond memories. You know, it's, local government can bring you down sometimes, but UBCM is one of those things that just fuels my fire and keeps me going. It's an inspiring place to be. So really enjoyed all of that, and I have to acknowledge our Premier, our MLA, who, if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have made it home, actually, in time for the Celebrate Souk, and I would have missed it out because of the way the weather came in, and torrential downpour in Vancouver. So long story, but just want to acknowledge that. I also want to acknowledge all of our career and volunteers with Souk Fire and Rescue, our paramedics, and our RCMP. This is a really challenging time. I don't think any of them that may have chosen this career would have factored in a pandemic and all the complications associated with that. In addition to that, and finding ways to keep our community spirit live, and then having to dispatch, hearing news of a community of Linton burned to the ground, and then others burning. And while things have cooled down now, our volunteers and our career staff went there to tend to these fires and came back, and then they're dealing with just tragic circumstances on our roads. And so I just want to give a shout out to everyone involved there, as well as their families and our staff and everyone that is supporting and keeping just sort of our department intact. So thank you to all of you, because I think it's important that we all together support these very important resources, as well as our nurses, our allied health practitioners, and all the frontline servers, grocery store clerks and the like that have just been on the front line of all of this for such a long time. So it's complicated out in the world right now, but there's just a lot of gems, and I think that's where events like Celebrate Souk bring all this, the fun and the vibrancy and the goodness of our community that you can easily forget if you're just at home staring at Facebook, right? Like, you need to get away from the screen and in with people. But just a big shout out. It's been way too long for all of you, and for our staff. You're an essential service as well, and you've just been going at this nonstop. Our counselors here as well. There's been no rest, and it's just been busy, busy, busy with a lot of things coming at us. So just want to thank all of you for the encouragement, the support, and for the humor. You know, local government is fun. Love it. So on that note, never a boring day. And if you are frustrated, take notes. It makes good material for books. Novel November is coming. You could put a good work of fiction together in about a month. So that's what I'll be doing. Anyway, on that note, I will now go to our final item, and that is that the September 20th, 2021 regular council meeting be adjourned.
Tony might want to say something.
He didn't want to speak, so we've come and gone. We're on a new motion now. Would anyone like to adjourn? We all want to be here all night? Is that what I'm hearing? Moved by Councillor Beddoes, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. All those in favor? Be well, everyone. Good night. Thank you, 10, for watching. Good night.